Perfect. All right, wait. Oh, okay. I wasn't prepared. Ah! Okay. Perfect. Hey, oh, wait, where's the video? Hey, everybody!
Should we just run it uncut?
Yeah, that's the plan. This is Major Stupoid here. You can tell I live up to that moniker. Hello, I'm the author of The Cruel Spider, the Percy Jackson fan fiction, where I made it infinitely better. Not really. This here... Do you want to
Hi,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Julian. I'm Alex's friend. Helped him a little bit with his project.
Essentially how it went was he came over, I told him about it, and then he gave me a whole bunch of ideas, and our reactions went something like, "It's so cool!
Holy fuck, let's do this!"
And thus the Cruel Spider was born. I've cursed in the story, dude. Who cares?
Just wondering if I can scream fuck at the top of my lungs.
I mean, we have other people in the house, so probably not. So this is going to just be a kind of quote-unquote behind-the-scenes thing where we just kind of talk about this story. So we have an outline here.
He mostly talks and I just sit here and nod.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
I have an outline here where we're going to go through general inspirations, the different themes that I personally found in it. Like, you can think whatever you want. It's up to you. But these are what I took out of it. The characters, the most important ones. And then we're going to go through the different book adaptations one by one, talk about the major scenes, the really important stuff that kind of adds to the overall story. And then throughout it, we're going to talk about kind of how I went around, structure, power balancing, character interaction, stuff like that. So after that, I mean, he can jump in whatever he wants, but I did kind of section off time for him as well in case he has like a big thought thing. I don't know. So then we're going to go into overall thoughts, kind of what we both thought about it. I have my 6 favorite chapters lined up here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the sequel. A little bit.
Which is going to be very cool. He's told me some stuff, and you guys are going to love it once you get there.
I'm so fucking hyped
I can't tell you anything, but once it comes, you guys are going to have your minds blown. If you don't mind, I'm really quick going to grab my notebook and write down any ideas so I don't interrupt you.
You know what we probably should have gotten?
What?
Drinks.
We can pause it, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Who cares, dude? Yeah, fair enough. Should we just leave this all?
Well, that was fun.
Alright, I'm going to grab
I have a pencil as well if you need it.
I've got plenty of pens and pencils. This is my school bag.
Oh.
So, yeah.
You don't need to see what's in there.
I mean, if you want to.
No, you really don't want to know.
Come see what's in my bag. Okay.
Come see, come sa.
Sure.
So what were we doing?
Well, you were just about to go through...
Okay.
And I just wanted to write stuff down. So.
Okay. So, we got our drinks. We
Cheers.
both got a glass of water.
Nice.
Both got a glass of water. I also got me some,
I can't decide if we're brilliant or idiots. And sometimes we frequently go between the two, I'd say.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Many of the ideas that we share.
The episode, the most recent video camera. Yeah.
So, you probably don't care, but...
You can tell them.
We just spent an hour trying to get the video camera to work. My default video camera on my laptop says it's being used by another device, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So I got an external webcam, which wouldn't show up on OBS. So then we drove all the way to his house to get a webcam that he had given or thrown away or like given away or sold like last Christmas.
I had sold it just like a month or two ago.
So...
And I had had it for years and never used it. And so I was like, oh, I probably still have it. Nope.
So, yeah, that was a thing. And then we came back here, and I'm like, well, I have multiple USB things, and sometimes they don't work with devices. So I switched it out, and now it works. So we just spent that entire trip for nothing. And that was like, what, an hour probably?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, damn. Well, not that you guys care. You guys are here for the behind the scenes. So, we're just going to jump straight into it with some general inspirations. When I first started this, and once again, you can jump in whenever you want. When I first started this, it was right at the tail end of my senior year of high school. And I just finished my first book that was full novel length. I had written a novella before, but my first novel was completed at the end of my senior year. And I didn't want to jump straight into the second one because I was getting kind of burnt out on that because I literally spent my entire senior year writing that. So then I thought, this happens occasionally, I just suddenly got an urge to read some Percy Jackson. And lo and behold, I realized ways that I could improve it. And by improve it, I mean make it in my own style. So I just started writing it, and I wrote the first Lightning Thief adaptation. I wrote that in like a week. So I figured that I would be able to finish all of the first series by like mid-July. That didn't work out, as you can see. So, thoughts. So my original idea was, at the time, I was becoming very aware of the current medium of anime. I was always kind of into the medium, but it was around that time that I really kind of noticed a lot of the trends. And one of the trends is a genre called isekai, which is a normal Joe Schmo, maybe a guy who's down on his luck, being transferred into this new fantastical world where he is either out of his element or just completely overpowered, and just kind of thrust there. And I noticed that is exactly what freaking happens in Percy Jackson and also in Harry Potter, but we don't talk about that. So I don't know who got inspired by who, or whom, whatever. Or if it was like just a kind of a causality kind of thing. But it happened, and I was thinking, I should just make Percy Jackson an anime. And that's essentially what I did. I forgot my mouse is on. And that is exactly what I did. So, you might have noticed, if you are an anime watcher, that I stole many scenes from many shows. Because I love them. And I didn't exactly... I stole them. But I kind of tried to add my own twists. For example, when Percy blows up the volcano, that's basically taken directly from the part in Dragon Ball Z, which I don't like anymore. The part in Dragon Ball Z where Vegeta blows himself up against Majin Buu. So that's where I got that inspiration. Okay, so brief thoughts on the original series is the next point. Well,
I can say from an outside kind of perspective, because I wasn't with him the whole time he was writing. I thought it was really neat, and even though I personally have not seen all the animes that he has taken thoughts from, I thought just overall it worked out really well, and it was very entertaining. Rick
Riordan.
Yeah, no, I got that. I was just going to say, I was collecting my thoughts.
Sorry.
Yeah, he had a good idea. He just didn't use it to the potential that I feel like Alex did. He did a really great job with it. You know, he made it... I don't want to say more applicable to life because that's totally not true, but it was more... Like, you could understand where Percy was coming from more, you know? Otherwise, Percy just... In the original, he was happy-go-lucky all the time. You know, parents... His mother supposedly died, and father's really not showing up anywhere, and it was just like, that's fine, you know. I got this, so...
So, my thoughts on the original series has degraded significantly since I started writing this. Because that's what always happens when I start writing things about other things. When I wrote The Last Great Airbender, which is a Korra fic, I stopped liking season 3, and that was my favorite season before. So, thoughts on the original series. They're complicated. I do like the idea. I love Greek mythology. I love what Rick does to modernize the Greek myths. But the overall story is less than stellar, in my opinion. it's clear that Rick used this as a Greek mythology teaching tool, hence why the books are still rated for 9 to 11-year-olds. They're used to teach people about the Greek myths. And it's very clear that that's where his expertise lies. I believe he majored in Greek mythology, or in the study of Greek mythology, or the teaching of it, or whatever. Because when he tries to focus on the characters, it usually fails utterly. I think a lot more characterization comes out of the fandom, like on Pinterest, than ever came out in the books ever. So I do appreciate the books in a way, and my favorite is still Titan's Curse. I still stand by that is objectively the best of the original 5. But I'd still only consider probably 7. The others are probably 5, maybe. Sea of Monsters.
10.
Yeah, Sea of Monsters sucks. Just don't read it. It's terrible. He doesn't use anything right.
See, that's another thing you did well, I think, is like you made it a little bit more gritty and you made it more real life, and
yeah,
it's, as you said, Rick Hendy makes it a teaching tool in his series, and Alex turned it into an actual story instead. So.
There's nothing wrong with teaching tools. It's just not what I wanted from it. So I made it into something else. I bumped the mic. Themes. I don't have a transition.
Go off the list.
Go off the list. When in doubt, list it out. So, themes. Again, you can take whatever you want out of this. It's up to the eye of the beholder. And as the beholder, looking back on it, this is what I noticed as a trend of what I was saying. Really, I should switch those around, because if they were switched around, I could say that it went from most important to least important, or least important to most important. But anyway, so first thing we're going to talk about is loss. As you may have noticed, there's a lot of people dying and a lot of things lost in this book. At first, I wasn't expecting it to get so gritty towards the end, but as I continued writing it, I continued kind of realizing the tragedy of the characters, and especially with the later deaths, because like the first major death was Tyson in book 2. Like it or not, no matter what I do, the lore is that he will eventually be reformed. So while I think it did open up the audience like you guys' eyes that, yeah, this is going to be a serious take on story, it really didn't mean much. I think it's, personally, if I were to split the book up, it would be the first 2 adaptations and then the last 3 in sort of 2 parts, because the first 2 are basically all set up. Anyway, the major death that I really remember as like the first huge loss for the Olympians was Artemis. When she died, it was like a holy shit moment, where like, and just that whole ending of that 3rd adaptation was extremely depressing, and it was very hard to write. But I felt that it did help pave the way for the overall theme of loss, and of course the next one, moving on, which is a big part of how Percy ultimately came into his own as a human being, and also how several characters will come into their own moving forward. So not much to say on those. It's very much a passive theme, if that makes sense. But inner strength, like where you draw it from and how you draw it from yourself, is really a big part of Percy's character. Because he does, even from the beginning, he did have substantial mental fortitude. Like, even from the first chapter, it was very clear that he was kind of made for this life. So he did obviously have a mental fortitude, but it wasn't until very, very late in the journey that he really realized where it comes from. And it does come from those around him, his friends, the campers that choose to hold faith in him, like Annabeth and Bianca and Winona and, you know, all these other people. And I think that's a really important distinction between those he has known and has come to care about and to love, as opposed to the gods, which is where it seemed like in the original series that was where Percy was taking it from, and it didn't really make sense to me. like, it was very clear that his powers were from Poseidon. Like, they weren't really his own. So that's was something I really wanted to focus on and change. So, yeah, inner strength.
Well, I mean, it's I don't know. It's a theme you've seen played with even in, throughout history. It is the inner strength. It's overcoming things that it's the underdog overcoming. It's the what is it, Deus Ex Machina? Is that what it's called? It's the little man taking on something he shouldn't be able to and still winning, kind of a thing. And so by giving Percy his strength based off of him instead of Poseidon, it made it more real, and that he was fighting for what he wanted. Yeah, and it was his personal battle instead of
fighting for
Percy and Poseidon's battle.
Yeah. So what I think is the most interesting theme that I introduced in here, and it was one that I really want to continue, is the theme of kind of perspective and the value of differing ones. While this story is primarily told through Percy's eyes, he's not the only one with a valid opinion, and in fact, due largely to his character flaws, his opinion usually is not correct, or at least his kind of methods of going about. For example, the Titan War in the final book, it got a lot of his friends slaughtered, essentially. So while he is the main protagonist, and I think he did ultimately live up to the name of a hero, if it weren't for the differing perspectives of people like Annabeth and Zoe, then he probably would have failed. So I think the importance of perspective is going to be, it's something that everyone, I think, needs to learn. And I'm still struggling to learn it myself, and how to handle how to handle accepting others' opinions, as well as reinforcing my own and adjusting accordingly. So it is something I'm still grappling with, and as such, I did intentionally leave it a bit open-ended. But yeah, I think that is the most interesting thing. And I do apologize if I'm not going as deep into these themes as you would want. The purpose of art is not to answer questions; it's to ask them and draw discussion. So,
and then
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh shoot! What was I going to say with perspective? I'm not going to remember now. It was.
That's how it always is.
Of course.
With everything we do, whatever it is, we both come up with a great idea,
and then it's like, wait, what was that? Yeah.
Sometimes I can't.
I'll remember as soon as you move on.
Sometimes I go downstairs from my room and then don't remember why I went downstairs, so I come back up.
That happens, and then you come back up and you're like, that's what it was.
I have to write down things for my checks, which you're not allowed to see. I have to write down things for my checks. And
taxes come soon.
I don't have those because I didn't make enough money this year.
Oh, nice. Lucky duck. Actually, no.
Yeah, I went down for a pen, and then I didn't remember what I went down for, so I came all the way back up. And then I still didn't have a pen, so whatever. I tend to ramble and tangent a lot, so apologies. So, what I think is one of the most important themes, the last one I have listed here, is the idea of heroism and what it means to be a hero. Ever since I saw Fate Zero, that theme has been so cool to me. Sorry, I have a soda. So, what it means to be a hero. And I think this one was most challenged during the Battle of the Labyrinth. Where you see two different ideas of what a hero is. You see Percy, obviously, who comes in at the last minute and, wins the day, saves everyone, stuff like that. But then you have a differing thing where, a differing idea of heroism, where you stand up even though you don't think you can win. And that's what we saw with Annabeth, fighting against Daedalus in the hopes of at least distracting him long enough for someone stronger to come, or for them to find an opening to fight back. And the question becomes, what is more heroic? Is it standing up when you know you can't win, or coming and saving everyone when you think you can? So I think that theme will definitely come up again in United We Stand with people like Jason and Leo and Winona, of course, and really all the other characters. So I do think it's an interesting question, and I do hope to spark at least a little bit of discussion, whether in comments or in your personal life or burp or what have you.
Great thing to do on camera.
Yeah, well.
I was just going to say, I personally feel like the thing of fighting for, even when you can't win, and even knowing you're, like, even having a pretty sure sense you're going to fail, but knowing you have to try for the sake of trying or for the sake of possibly giving a chance to someone else, that I feel like is much more heroic, you know? And from what I've heard of the United We Stand, there have been a few foreshadows, both with the heroism and with perspective, which perspective is going to be very cool in United We Stand.
You're probably not going to agree with everything the characters do in that book. Just warning you guys. So, next we're going to move on to characters. And these aren't going in any particular order. They're just kind of as they're listed, as I thought of them. So, first off was Percy, of course. Main character, son of Poseidon. Total badass. Gets the shit kicked out of him anyway. But,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Percy's whole arc kind of developed kind of as I wrote it. I knew I wanted him to be a bit more dark. I didn't want him to be I wanted him to be snarkier and less kind of sassy. If that makes sense. So that was my idea at first. But then the more I came to realize, he really is a tortured soul, in a sense. He comes from a shitty family, his stepdad probably beat him a bit. He was an alcoholic, stuff like that. Even when he came to Camp Half-Blood, nobody really liked him, like at all. The only one that could tolerate him was Annabeth, and that was only after their quest. And even that was really strained within the Sea of Monsters. So his life wasn't that great. And it kind of... I wasn't really trying to say anything really groundbreaking with his arc, but really trying to show a case study of what it really means to kind of push through adversity, even if you don't understand why you're trying. And Percy did not know why he was trying. Even like the first half of Battle of the Labyrinth, he did not know at all really what he was fighting for until he kind of realized it and declared it himself against Poseidon in chapter 47, which that was a great scene. So yeah, his whole arc was really kind of being authentic with himself, kind of not lying, not trying to follow in with the other Olympians or any of the other campers. And while he may still not be the most liked demigod at Camp Half-Blood, in fact, that's going to be a big early plot point in United We Stand. He does have a core group of friends. He does have Annabeth and Winona and Bianca, and now Ethan even. I would probably consider a friend. So, he did, I think ultimately he did come into his own, and his whole arc of that growth, of that coming of age story is over. He is going to get another arc in United We Stand, but it is going to be basically entirely different, because he's going to be facing entirely different adversaries, entirely different ideologies. So I think I like where he ended up, but I don't think he liked where he ended up, if that makes sense. It could have turned out better, probably. Luke didn't have to die. But anyway, some changes I made, of course. He is a lot darker. He's a lot more brutal. I made him... my idea for, him as a fighter was that he was kind of like Kratos, in that he was extremely brutal. I don't think I went quite that far, but He was extremely brutal. He was extremely deadly. He didn't really care much for his opponents. He very much did embody the moniker of the cruel spider.
Well, his ideology was just
Kill
hit things until it's dead,
Yeah.
and then hit it some more just because it can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he really did, I think, embody that moniker. And then as he learned to kind of satiate that thrill for battle, it turned from supposed cruelty to kind of a pride, kind of a nobility to it, which is encompassed in his fatal flaw, excessive bravery. That's what you imagine in like, for example, a knight in shining armor in like medieval times, where and then he ultimately got the moniker of the Wolf by Zoe, kind of either just as comfortable as an alpha or a loner. And then at the very end, he is the Titan Slayer. Hooray, hooray. I think he earned it. Inspirations. You guys aren't going to get this, but I have a character in my novel called Sora. He is, at the beginning of the book, he's established as extremely powerful and not really bound by kind of mortal law. I figured that by the end of the book, Percy was probably going to be like that. I wanted to see the journey to that point. And as it turns out, Percy, by the end of this, and Sora from the other book, do have similar ideologies. So I guess it worked out. And then, Percy from the original book is obviously an inspiration. And then where he got the Cruel Spider moniker was Machi from Hunter x Hunter. The best show ever created, ever.
His favorite.
Just watch it, dude. It's so good. Just watch it. It's so good. Machi is best girl. But yeah. I guess anything to say on Percy?
Nothing there, I guess. I don't know. Do you want to talk about all the awkward moments of like, oh, that would be so cool if he suddenly could copy his blade with water, and then he was swinging Riptide and a water blade, and then when we went to the blood blades and like,
it was so fun coming up with powers for him.
All the characters.
It was so fun.
Bianca with the bladed whip thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
Or a possible weapon that might show up in the next, we stand.
We'll
You'll see. There's some really cool ones.
Possibly. I can't wait. All right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So next I have Annabeth. I don't have a lot to say about Annabeth, honestly. She was probably the person I changed the least, because I liked her how she was. I mean, she was kind of a bitch, but whatever. She didn't really have necessarily an arc in terms of she went from point A to point B, but her ideals were reinforced throughout the book, and she did. You could see how she matured as a person as she grew older, especially when it came to caring about other people and being more trustworthy and stuff like that. So I really don't have much for Annabeth. She was kind of the most stagnant. But I feel like that was necessary with Percy overcoming or undergoing this just massive ideological change throughout the book. I think it was fitting to have a more stable character be his significant other to kind of keep him on track. Although in Battle of Labyrinth it did get pretty rocky. That was depressing. Anything to say?
Nothing I can't say.
Oh, that's true. That's true. She is going to undergo a
say.
big arc in United We Stand. Don't worry about that. My cheeks are so red. I'm smiling too much because it's so hype.
Oh, this is it's so freaking cool. I've known Alex since elementary school, but we went to different junior highs, and so then our friendship rekindled in high school, and he's brilliant with how he does some of his stuff. It's just really cool, and
why, thank you.
I just he hypes me up, and then I hype him up, and it goes back and forth. And it's just like
And then when I sit down at the writing desk, all that hype drains away when I realize I have to revise and fix all the character
You're like,
interactions.
oh wait, I have to
have to actually
stuff.
write. Shit.
It's not like you can just pour your braid onto a page and that's it.
That would be the greatest invention ever.
It's just Matrix and just plug in and whoop,
The
done.
worst part about writing is sitting down and writing. That's the best way I can describe it.
You should just make your books audiobooks and just talk about your ideas and then make everyone assemble the book in their own way.
No, dude, that'd be so mean. I would like to record an audiobook eventually, but not anytime soon. I don't know.
Perhaps you could do that with your first one once you publish it.
Maybe.
How cool would that be?
That'd
I think
be
you should
so
do that.
Badass.
And that's another thing is check out his like original work once it comes out because I think that'll be pretty cool. I have yet to have a chance to read through some of it, but he gave me the honor of being able to read it first, and so that's one of my jobs when I'm not in college. So, you know.
So next, back to Percy.
Sorry.
We have Bianca. So Bianca obviously did not die. She did not die. Nico did. What else to say? That decision kind of came at the beginning of Titan's Curse, when I realized that I had no fucking clue what I wanted to do with Nico. And then I figured, I could probably make Bianca work instead. Besides, might as well keep up the idea of giving Percy a really weird harem. Like, by that point, he had both Annabeth and Talia, and now, after that, he has Bianca and Zoe and Winona and Selena. He has a fucking harem, dude. And then half of them fucking die. Well, not half of them. Selena dies.
Well, yeah, okay.
So, Bianca is a character. Surprise, surprise. The biggest change is that she has a fucking psychotic break, like twice. First time when Nico dies, she obviously awakens her powers as the daughter of Hades. To not overcome Atlas, that would have to wait until later.
Oh, it stalls him.
Because Percy was a pussy. But did this distract him enough for Zoe to kind of put him back under the sky. So, the second time was in Battle of the Labyrinth when, with the Antaeus fight, and she just kind of falls over, cackling like the Joker. That's not... Wow. Why did I write that? But yeah, Bianca...
No, you didn't.
Bianca is, like, a very disturbing character when you think about it. She has the capability... What I think is really interesting... Kind of jumping all over the place. But I think what was really interesting about the big three and their powers is their level... Not their level of destructive capability, but, like, how they go about it. Bianca's, in my opinion, is probably the least lethal. Like, yes, she can impale people with her shadows, but so can Percy with his water and with his swords and with his blood. And Talia can electrocute someone and knock them off the Grand Canyon. Hint, hint. That might happen at some point in United We Stand. Or maybe it might happen in the first chapter. So, yeah. I would consider Bianca's the least deadly, but it is by far the most terrifying. Wow. What I think is really interesting about what I did with Bianca is that I didn't show her doing nearly half of the things that I should have, that she actually did do canonically. We don't know what she did to Hades, but we do know that he's absolutely fucking mortified and terrified of her now. So take of that what you will. My hair sucks. I hate hair.
Me too, but
yours at least looks decent.
I've got stuff sticking out over here.
That's fair.
We just blocked this side of my head, and there we go.
All right. Good idea.
How's it going, guys?
Good idea.
We're gonna hold our heads up here for the rest of the thing for the next 2 hours.
So, Bianca is what I think is... Well, I do think Titan's Curse is the best. I do think Bianca was a wasted opportunity. She didn't really have much of a personality to her. I really wanted to add the fact that she's incredibly optimistic. And, of course, that works out beautifully for her, doesn't it? She definitely doesn't become really depressing. But yeah, she is essentially the happy-go-lucky kind of character that the story really needed at that point, because at that point it was getting really heavy, really heavy-handed, just really dark. We really needed Bianca to kind of keep up the tone to where it's not incredibly suicidal inducing, in that all the characters die. So I do like her role there. In terms of inspirations, Gon from Hunter x Hunter was a huge one. He's so perfect until the Chimera Ant arc, and then just bad things happen. So my idea for Bianca was, what if Gon kind of had to recover from that instead of it being shoehorned away in the Hunter election arc? So that was how I went about her characterization following her psychotic break. And I think it ultimately turned out for the best, especially with Winona. Winona kind of connecting with her, kind of playing the straight man to her idiot, so to speak. Because she's not the smartest, let's face it. I don't know, anything?
On Bianca?
Yeah.
The
weapon.
Which ones?
The sword.
Well, I mean, the sword, obviously, but
dude,
then...
that was the best idea we've ever had.
That was so cool. And then... hang on, let me...
write it down.
Hang on, let me write this down just in case. Is this showing up in the next one? Possibly? Do you remember when we talked about that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember talking about that?
No, I remember talking about it. I don't remember if I'm going to include it anymore.
Oh, okay.
I forget.
So, sword is obviously awesome because you either have a sword or you have the bladed whip. And I liked how he included... English. I like how you included the kind of the origin of the Stygian iron sword, because in Riordan's book it was just like Nico just popped up and he has this super sword that does something. It sucks souls out. Maybe. Yeah. So you gave it a story, and you kind of provided what the souls can do a little bit, right? I think. Yeah.
Sort of. It's still pretty vague, and I don't think she would want to test it, if I had to guess. So for now.
Who knows what's
So scrapped ideas.
Scrapped ideas.
I was originally going to do a Riptide thing with Bianca's sword, because it does have Nico's soul in it. I ultimately decided against it because that would have taken away the special nature of Riptide, and which kind of solidified the bond between Percy and Zoe, which I thought was really something special. And the fact that Nico I don't think would have been interesting enough to play off of Bianca, especially with Winona there, to provide that for him. So I ultimately scrapped it. I was even going to go so far as, that Talia is dead. I was going to have Jason kind of inherit her spear after Lost Hero, where of course Hera does the divine form and destroys his weapon. I was going to have him kind of inherit Talia's spear and have her talk to him, but then I ultimately decided against that as well, because that would have kind of undermined her death and what it means to the characters. So yeah, I ultimately decided against that. But speaking of Zoe, Zoe is a big character in this here booky thing. Her arc remains pretty much the same as the original series, where she just kind of learns to accept Percy as kind of just a human being rather than as a man or a boy or whatever you would have her say he was. But I think it adds kind of an extra layer of depth to where Percy kind of already understands a little bit where Zoe's coming from because of the influence of Riptide. And I did ultimately decide to keep Zoe around. That decision, I listed this in an author's note, but that decision was made literally a chapter before I wrote Artemis's death. Just literally, I got a review that for the prophecy, and it was like, the last line doesn't bode well for Artemis, and I'm like, oh my god, that'd be brilliant. Just kill off the goddess. Wow. So, yeah, I ultimately killed off Artemis, kept her on Zoe, had her inherit the name. And I think it is really telling of Percy's and Zoe's maturity to where they are able to work together civilly and even become very, very close friends by the end of the book, and to where they come to a very mutual understanding of each other, despite her being an Olympian type of person that he usually doesn't particularly care for. So I think that I do. Hers and Percy's are probably the most fun to write. Sorry for the voice crack. I don't know. Not much more to say about that. As for inspirations, I think the relationship between Hinata and Kageyama from Haikyuu was a big inspiration, because Kageyama was very much the voice of reason, whereas Hinata was an idiot. Take of that what you will. It's my opinion of Percy. So I do think that ultimately was pretty big inspiration for their interactions. I do think I made it original enough to where they're not necessarily on the same level, but they do treat each other as equals, and they do have a very close connection, which will persist into United We Stand. At least until Percy goes off to Greece and they kind of separate. Thoughts?
He hadn't told me about killing Artemis, so when I first read that, I was a little bit mind blown too. That was just kind of a cool moment of like, whoa,
shit's real.
That was
now.
ballsy.
Shit's real.
He
now.
just killed a god. But
that led to that fun story. Before we move on to Winona, who's the next character, I got a review for that chapter where the guy made a completely incorrect statement saying Greek gods can't die ever. So then I pointed out that 2 Greek gods technically died in
canon.
In canon.
Yeah.
I think it was Pan and, the original gods of the sun and moon, Helios and whoever the moon goddess was, because of lack of belief.
Well, Helios was Titan, right?
Technically, but they're still counted as like gods of whatever. Thing.
Yes.
In terms of title, it's weird. It's confusing. I hate it. So I pointed that to him, and he's like, "Neither of which happened in your book," and I was more confused than angry. I don't really get angry at bad reviews. I would say I don't want to say negative reviews because that wasn't a knock on me as a writer. It was just a factually incorrect statement, and it was a bad review. So I wasn't really mad. I'm more like confused. So I just told him it's called creative liberty, and he said with all seriousness that no, it's called lazy writing. So then I made this really long-winded speech. I say speech, but I wrote it out to him in a personal message, where I basically outlined why it wasn't lazy writing, because I literally spend hours just writing and revising and making sure everything is good.
He does. I've gotten calls at like 2 a.m. before, or texts at 2 a.m. like, I just came up with this, or I just finished this chapter, or like, help, I need to figure this out. It's like, it's 2 a.m. I'm asleep. In the middle. I'm asleep. I'll see it at 7 when I wake up for school or whatever, 6.
Yeah. So he didn't respond, or he did respond, and he said, what did he say? He said, geez, if you can't take criticism, just don't post here. And then I responded and said, that wasn't criticism. You never bashed anything in my work. That was just an incorrect statement. And then he didn't respond. So that was technically the only, quote, negative review I got, which was surprising, honestly. I say negative, but I did get some that were more constructive criticism, which I did appreciate, especially towards the beginning when I was trying to find my footing. It did, I think, help me along. So thank you. And then he came along and replaced you guys.
I would say that the comments are very well liked, and I know he loves getting them, and I like reading them too. It's kind of neat to see what people think of his creation and stuff, and by getting feedback, he can probably help elaborate on things and make it better and more interesting for you guys. So.
For those that did review asking a question, or like proposing something, I tried to PM you. Sometimes I just didn't have the time. But I do like to keep in touch with my viewer base. Try. So, moving on, I guess. Winona Solace. As for reasons why I gender bent Will Solace, because I think Will Solace sucked, and I think he would have been made infinitely better if he was a cute girl. So that is my reasoning. It's not the first time I've gender bent a blonde dude. I did the same for Edward Elric when I wrote an FMA fic.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what that says about me. I think girls are easier to write. Dudes are just too dense. They're literally too dense. I can't get across any information with any of the characters when I'm writing from a dude. Hence perspectives, and why I shift perspective occasionally from Percy. So yeah, Winona, please note that if you feel like her arc was very incomplete, that's because it was. Because she's going to be a major player in United We Stand, and her arc is going to be completed there. That being said, I wanted to add a lot more weight to the deaths that happen in The Last Olympian, and Michael Yu's death was one of them. Wasn't that a depressing scene? Remember that?
Or just how about at the end when
we want our friends
Zeus
back?
Yes, yep. Zeus is like,
Well,
grudgingly like, great job, kids. If you want something, let me know. And then someone, I imagine some like little like. It was one of the 13-year-old girls who had just showed up to camp. It was her first year, and she shows up, and she's just like...
We want our friends back.
Exactly. You're like, you could give me the riches of the world, or you could give me my friends, and I want my friends. And he's just like, sorry, shit out of luck.
Yeah.
So it's really like... Ugh.
Very bittersweet ending. But back to Winona, I guess. In terms of changes, I... did not read Blood of Olympus or the Trials of Apollo series, so I have no idea how Will Solace is.
Well, I didn't get to Apollo series either. But.
From the fandom pictures that I've looked at, he seems to be a very charming individual. But I did not take particular inspiration from Will Solace. I did take inspiration from Killua from Hunter x Hunter, and that kind of friendship between him and Gon. I kind of ended up... It wasn't my intention at first, but it did end up mirroring that friendship with Bianca and Winona. She's the straight man to Bianca's idiot. So I think that is ultimately a fitting thing. Yeah, nothing much else to say.
With Winona. A little bit of a surprise that Apollo kind of dies,
Oh, yeah.
And she becomes the new Apollo.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So I didn't explain much of that because it's very weird and it's very convoluted and it's very confusing. The way I imagined it, and since I didn't explain this in the story, this is technically headcanon. The way I imagined it is she is technically the god of the sun, but either due to her own mental barriers or the fact that she's technically still in a mortal's body, that she kind of doesn't have all the powers. She's going to slowly learn to control them throughout both the gap between this and United We Stand and throughout United We Stand itself. But she is kind of a half-god. I know, demigod, whatever, shut up. She's
three-quarter god.
Yeah, we'll say three-quarter god. So, yeah, it's very confusing. Apollo's empty vegetative body is still in camp. I didn't move it. It's still, it's still like resting.
And why would you be playing with a vegetative body?
Huh?
Never mind.
And actually it's not in camp, it's at Olympus. But it's still there. It's still kind of drooling, probably. But, yeah. We'll see where that goes. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Next up is Selena and Beckendorf. Not much to say. I wanted there to be more of them so that their deaths actually meant something. because in the original series, both of them had like a combined total of maybe 15 dialogue lines. Not much to say. I wanted to give them more, hence I did. Between Sea of Monsters and Titan's Curse when they got together, and throughout the rest of the book where we kind of see their relationship develop until ultimately their fatal flaws get the better of them. Where Selena's fatal flaw, lack of trust, kind of leads her to keep the fact that she was a spy secret, and Beckendorf, excessive betrayal. I don't know if I established that, but Children of Hephaestus's fatal flaw is excessive feelings of betrayal. We might see that later. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I'm doing a bad job of keeping this
foreshadowing. Yeah,
I'm doing a really bad job of keeping this. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
I mean, you haven't told them anything, you know.
Yeah.
They'll still be plenty surprised.
Yeah. So, and that ultimately did lead to his death because his feelings of betrayal were so great that he decided to commit suicide, essentially. For a good cause. For a good cause. Okay, yeah, that was a bad move. And Beckendorf's death and Selena's fault in it may or may not come up again.
You just seriously are foreshadowing everything.
Hey, why not?
Let me vaguely tell you the whole story right now.
Why not, dude? They'll never get it.
I did like how you did Beckendorf's leaving Selena the letter, and how you just
that was
made that,
so
you know,
sad.
you connected that a lot more. You made it more real, because it didn't feel very real in the first one.
It felt very forced.
Written, but it was, yeah, that's a good way of saying it. It was forced, and there wasn't like, it didn't have meaning. It didn't hold weight. You know, I feel like every death in the original ones it didn't hold anything.
No major character deaths ever happened in either series.
That's a good point.
Except for Leo, who then comes back to life.
Right, and then Leo's resurrected at the end. Spoilers if you've never read it. I don't know why you wouldn't have, but
I haven't. I haven't read Blood of Olympus yet.
Okay, well you're you know how it goes.
Yeah, I will probably end up having to read it because I need a journey for Bianca and Reyna to deliver the Athena Parthenos, if that's still going to be a plot point. I haven't fully decided yet.
Don't tell too much.
Well, I mean, what else are we going to do? I said I was going to keep the main story. That's kind of a big part of the main story.
Well, yeah, but they don't know everything.
That's fair.
Okay, whatever.
I don't know how it's going to go down. I haven't planned that far ahead. I did plan the ending, though. And oh my god!
Some of the ending battles are fucking awesome.
Like, if you thought the ending battles in this one were good, like chapter 58 when he fights Alice again. Okay, that was badass as hell.
But that was
holy
like there,
God!
and that's like up here. It's awesome.
The whole Blood of Olympus book is going to be the 7 versus like entire armies. It's gonna be badass. Just trust me.
Wait till that final twist is real, dude. That some of those twists at the end and like that final.
You are going to be so mad at me.
I can't wait to see the reviews on that. It's
all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Moving on to the next character. Or do you want to finish talking about their changes?
Selena and Beckendorf.
Yeah.
I had something, but then I forgot it.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm kind of disappointed in myself on how little I focused on Selena in the final book. Like, I knew I wanted to make her arc good, but the arc itself wasn't changed, and I didn't want to just write it unchanged. I did try to add some differences where we really kind of see her struggle. We really kind of see her struggle in ultimately deciding to sacrifice herself. But if I were to rewrite it, I would definitely give her more of that. Overall, though, I'm fairly happy with it. What I'm not happy with is Clarice and how she fits into all of that, because that was just so anticlimactic. But I digress. It conveyed what it needed to. Besides the hype from the other part, that more than made up for it for me. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we go through the individual books.
Oh
Final character. The big LC, Luke Castellan. What can I say about Luke? Nothing much changed with him in terms of from the original series, except for the fact that, in my opinion, I made him about 3 bajillion gajillion times better.
Made him less of like a weakling.
Yeah.
There were some points where he sobbed and cried in the original series that didn't really make sense. You know, you made him more. You know, he was resolute in his decisions.
Mm-hmm.
He made a decision. He was like, all right, fine. I don't like it, but I will carry it out.
Yeah.
You know.
I really wanted to draw out the tragedy of the character, which I think was the most interesting part of him. His arc is essentially the same as Percy's, except he doesn't have the supportive people around him to help him realize it on his own. Which is why it was up to Percy in that final battle to ultimately make the decision to try and help Luke, rather than just try to kill him, which would have probably failed. In fact, it would have failed because Percy had literally no strength left, and the bronze dagger broke. So he had nothing. So, yeah, Luke. I do like Luke. He was probably my favorite character. Because he just had so many great moments, from like his fight with Percy at the end of Sea of Monsters. That was great. Where he first got the taste of Titanic power with the beam slash thing. That was so cool. His moments right before the final battle in Titan's Curse. That was another good one with Thalia, whatever her name is. It's stupid. Just get rid of the H. It would have been so much better. I think my favorite moment with him, though, is right before the fight with Atlas, the second fight with Atlas, with him and Talia on the roof, overlooking it.
And that discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so sad.
That was cool.
And another thing that I added with Luke was the backstory, where he was leading a small group of demigods to Camp Half-Blood, kind of. And where we really get to see where the beginning of Luke's obsession with hating the gods really began, because in his eyes they really had failed him. And not only they had failed him, but as he comes to realize he had failed them, which was a big part of him ultimately changing heart. And I do think it was important, not to ramble on too long, but I do think it was important that he didn't ultimately side with the Olympians. He sided with Percy. So I think that's an important distinction. And I think that really is telling of kind of my overall attitude of the gods in this story and how I portrayed them. Thoughts?
No, I did like how you had that backstory and how, you know, when the other demigods die, and, you know, even though they're not named, you see them die, and it really takes a toll on Luke, and it's that moment of, like, how could they let this happen? Because these gods have lots of influence over the world. How could they let, 10 of their children just die?
Probably more like 20 or 30.
Exactly. How could you just let that concentrated group of power that could grow up to fight the monsters just be slaughtered before they have a chance? You know, and that really twists and, like, it weighs him down. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, he's further weighed down by his own feelings, as you said. And
yeah, it's really I had a good word for it. Now I lost the word. God, it always happens.
English.
But it really kind of puts into perspective
more foreshadow.
Kind of his actions throughout the book, where you really, in the original series, you really didn't understand why he was doing this. Like, he had daddy issues, sure, but you get the feeling that it wasn't him, and I really wanted to make it about Luke, because he was much more important, much more interesting than Kronos ever was, or ever will be. So, yeah, so that's Luke. How long have we been recording? 1 hour.
Already.
And we haven't even gotten into the adaptations.
Where do you see the time?
Down here.
Wow, that's awesome.
Damn.
Very cool.
All right.
Moving
All right.
On to individual books.
Oh my god. There's so much left. Okay. So.
Well, we might be here for 3 hours.
Hey, if we are, whatever, dude.
And we're not editing this down. Sorry, you'll have to skip around if you don't care about everything.
Okay, so we're gonna go through all the books in order. I listed out some of my favorite or some of the more important scenes or aspects of the book, and what they established and what they mean for the overall product, with a lot of emphasis on the final book because I think it was where everything came to a head.
You're not kidding. Look at all that.
So, first book, the Lightning Thief adaptation. First big change, which I think it really set in motion and made inevitable the conflict that Percy was going to have in the book, was not being claimed by Poseidon. That was like the first big moment where just things start going wrong a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it was before that, but yeah.
All right, that's fair. But
I mean, seeing your mother straight up killed. Not even sent to the underworld, but just straight up choked out.
Yeah, fine.
Does things to a guy.
Yeah, so Percy was not claimed. That really set in motion. I think that was... I think I should have put more emphasis on it.
On the not being... that I feel like you had a little bit of a difficult time just kind of conveying that. The whole, like, you know, I don't want to be fighting for my father, but I want to be for myself. And he struggles with that initially because he feels like he
should. He
feels like, yeah, exactly. He feels like he should be representing his dad because that's kind of how it has been with other Olympians, and that's kind of how it was in the original books.
Yeah.
And so it almost was a little bit of a fourth wall break. Even how you did that was like, you know, and you did that a couple times. Even there was a little bit of fourth wall breaking of like, you know, it should be like this, but then I'm going to change it. You know?
Yeah. So next scene near the end was the truck scene before they get to the Lotus Hotel and Casino. I don't know if you remember this, but it's the scene where...
No, I remember.
Yeah. This is really important. Like, I don't think it could be understated or overstated how important this particular scene was for the rest of the book.
And future books.
And future books. Because this is the cornerstone of Percy and Annabeth's both friendship and relationship. Without this scene, they would probably think nothing of each other. Even at the beginning of the scene, Annabeth's like, you know, trying to avoid talking to him so that she doesn't have to anymore. And by the end, we see that she takes, if not feels protected, she does at least feel comforted knowing that he is fighting alongside her. So, very important scene. I think it still holds up relatively well. I would probably make it longer now. But I would make everything longer now.
Well, and the other thing is your first book you were trying to get traction. First and second even, I would say. Yeah. You know, he had some trouble figuring out his groove, but then by the third book he really hit it spot on, so.
Third book's probably my favorite that I adapted to.
You just like the Titan's Curse a lot in general.
Yeah, I do. I love the dynamic of Titan's Curse. I love it. But anyway, final scene we're going to talk about in Lightning Thief is the scene on Olympus when he first gets to talk to Poseidon, and it goes swimmingly. That was so bad. I wish I wrote out that joke.
Sound effects.
I wish I wrote out that joke. That would have been even better.
That would have been even better.
But yeah, Poseidon sucks. Poseidon is not a good guy. Percy knows this. Well, now he knows it, but he didn't know it then. And I think the best line from all of Lightning Thief was, "I have no need for a son like that." That was like so powerful, and it really put this lingering doubt in Percy's mind, all the way up until he confronts Poseidon in Battle of the Labyrinth. I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good scene. What were your... do you have any highlights?
Of the first one?
Yeah.
No, I don't think... Nothing really... Honestly, the first one did not stick out as much as some of the later ones did.
I can agree with that.
You know?
The battle scene with Ares is terrible. Have you read that? It sucks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was terrible.
I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, it was not that great. But.
Yeah. Whatever.
not going to go back and write them now.
Yeah. I was considering going back and rewriting the Lightning Thief adaptation, but I was like, I read it back and I'm like, this is too funny. I can't recreate this.
There was some funny moments.
My
there was definitely some funny moments.
My favorite moment was when Chiron first tells Percy that the Lightning Thief was stolen, and Percy's honest to goodness first thought was, did a Hermes kid do it? And it's so ironic because it was a Hermes kid.
Again, a little bit of that fourth wall breaking, which is really, really cool. You know,
I definitely took inspiration from Team 4-Star with General Zeebridged. But moving on. Moving on. Sea of Monsters adaptation. What I really wanted to establish here was that Percy and Annabeth were the OTP relationship from here, and not dragging it out through all 5 books. I'm sorry if you can hear that, but I was so mad reading the books again. Just get together! God! So that was like one of my main goals when I first started writing this. Like, I'm not gonna deal with all that fucking will they won't they stupid shit. So Percy and Annabeth get together in this book. Long story short. I think, back on track, not ranting. I think it's important to note that this is essentially a love story, if you think about it. A lot of the conflict and drama comes directly from the relationship between Percy and Annabeth, and whether you like that or not is your prerogative. I know Julian would probably rather prefer the conflict with the Titans and the gods, because that's badass.
I mean, you need a little bit of everything to build a good world. You know, good story and world building. You need to have the slower parts and have the okay, fine parts. You know. Yeah. It is what it is.
So, very, very important. I really liked the scene with right after the sirens, where they finally come to an understanding again. And then it, of course, transitions into the Cersei Island part, and then stuff about Luke and Polyphemus. Yay. But speaking of Luke, this is where we really start to get to see what he gains from siding with the Titans, and really starts to provide a dichotomy between him and Percy. Because Luke, at this point, appears like he has a lot. He has allies. He's safe for the most part. He has a yacht. You know, all this stuff. He's incredibly strong. He could take down Tyson in one shot. Whereas Percy, at this point, he has no friends. At that point, when he confronts Luke, not even Annabeth is on his side. He's not happy with Tyson. Well, he is, but you know what I mean. So Percy really has nothing at that point. So it really provides a dichotomy. Pants sitting too long.
Should we take a small break?
No. Just keep going. Push through.
Must finish the episode.
Must finish.
Or the video.
So I purposely didn't talk at all yesterday because I knew I would run my voice raw. We're just talking this long. So yeah, there's that dichotomy with Luke. There's Tyson, who I mentioned sounds like a male Starfire because I really like Starfire from the Teen Titans show. I think she's adorable. And I wanted to transfer some of that innocence to Tyson, just so I could make his death a bit more impactful. Speaking of Tyson's death, first character death. Wow. I expected a better reaction. I got really sad.
I was going to say, not many people were that bothered by it. But,
I think that was just where that was where the focus of the reviews shifted to. Oh my God, why didn't you have Percy join the Titans? It would have made so much sense. And then it shifted to, okay. This is getting really interesting. I didn't think you would actually kill off some characters. You know what I mean? So this is where I kind of noticed the shift of what the reviewers wanted it to be, which, that's fine and good and all that. And I did appreciate those reviews as well, because some of them did kind of shape the way I wrote it. But then it changed to, kind of not so much telling me what I should do, but rather guessing what might happen, which I think was a very cool thing. Next up, versus Polyphemus and the impact of such. This was Percy's first, I think, major battle that ended in a victory. It was where we first really saw how Percy handled under immense pressure and immense kind of like an overwhelming force. He pulled through, just barely. He used literally all of his strength, and then he used even more of it to go and save Annabeth, who had been taken hostage. Which leads us into Percy versus Luke round uno, where he gets his ass totally handed to him. Like, not even a contest. Even if Percy had been at full strength, Luke would have just toyed with the bitch. He was worthless. He was worthless.
Ouch.
Percy takes time.
That's true. That's true.
And we will see the fruits of that because he's going to rock everyone in United We Stand.
The final part of that.
And the final part of...
That's right. Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
That
I really hope they didn't hear that.
Well, if they... Well, I mean... It already happens in canon.
I guess.
Right? So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but just like...
Dude, that's going to be so
it's a big
cool.
deal. It's...
Evil laughs. But, yeah. This is where we first get to see a bit of Titanic power. Which I think is cool as shit. And this is where I set up the first of 3 parts. A 3-part progression growth that I don't think many of you picked up on. Where when Luke charges the beam slash and he shoots it at Percy, Percy tries to block it and he just can't. He is thrown off. And it's only through an act of desperation and literally draining his powers so dry that he's unable to use them to their full capacity until basically the end of Battle of the Labyrinth. Only because of that did they make it out. So he lost, and that beam slash was the part. We'll get to part 2 and 3 later on. But that's Sea of Monsters. Hallelujah is a great song, by the way. Just saying.
Should that be the outro as we're playing it? As we sign off?
Why not?
Okay.
Let's do it. I'm not singing it. I'm probably just going to edit it in. You can mouth it, and then I'll edit it.
Sure.
Titan's Curse adaptation starts in chapter like 24, whenever Talia is first introduced. Okay, so big things happen in part 3 because this is where the big stuff starts happening. Surprise, surprise. Talia is introduced. I know of at least one person, because they reviewed, who stopped reading at this point because they didn't like that Talia was stronger than Percy.
Really?
Yeah.
Your loss. Because now Percy can just wipe the floor with Talia.
Yeah. I don't blame them because, yeah, it's kind of stupid and annoying. And, well, that was the point. It was stupid and annoying to Percy, too. That was kind of the big point of Talia's character in Titan's Curse. So Talia, she was basically introduced to provide a foil to Percy. She was very devoted to the gods. She was very, very trusted by Chiron and all these other people. She was believed to be the hero of the Great Prophecy, whereas before Percy was probably going to be the hero of the Great Prophecy, she's a foil. And as such, they get into a lot of arguments. And I think those arguments are some of the best in the entire book, personally. Like, the part where, after the volleyball game, when they start to fight in the water, that is
No, the first one that comes to mind with me is just when he hangs her out of Apollo's
chariot.
That
was cool, too.
That's the, like, oh shit moment.
Ah! Copyright!
What the hell was that?
I work in Target Back Room. 3 o'clocks drop at 3 o'clock. And I have a timer in case I'm doing something else.
Nice song, by the way. We totally lost our train of thought.
Todd,
focusing.
Hanging out of Apollo's thing.
Yes.
That was
really
cool.
We just did that. Okay.
I really hope at least one person read that and was like, is he going to drop her? Wow. Okay, that was cool. So Talia, I had a couple reviewers kind of want her to die at that point because they didn't like her, and congratulations, they understood the point.
Yeah, hold your horses. She dies soon enough, you know.
Yeah. But by that point, we were just like, "No, Talia!"
That was a kind of devastating moment when he first told me about it, because he told me about that one, and I was just like,
"What?
Are you serious?
You can't do that."
You decided to put arrows in the back of her head and just let her drop. Like, holy crap.
I'm an evil author. Let's face it.
I wouldn't call that evil. I'd call that good writing. If your readers are saddened or frustrated or annoyed by someone dying, you know,
especially when I told the audience in chapter 58, which was
something worth fighting for.
4 chapters before she died, I told the audience directly, "I'm gonna die tomorrow night," or she said that to Luke.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And they were
Didn't she like dream about it or whatever?
She asked Bianca.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, Bianca just kind of tells her, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's creepy. Could you imagine if you just like
someone came out someone was gonna
hey,
die?
Man, you're gonna die tonight. What the fuck?
And then a meteor strikes your house.
Yeah, you like barricade yourself in your house, and then meteor just.
Okay, so that's Talia. Kind of got off track. Next most important person is Bianca. We already talked about Bianca. Let's face it. This kind of sets up the friendship between her and Percy. What I really did not want to introduce is a love triangle, because I don't like love triangles, and I say that, and there's a love triangle, and you don't understand.
I was just gonna say eyebrows are raising here,
but what I don't like about love triangles is that one of them is always the failure. There's never a point where everyone wins. So that's what I wanted to avoid in this. And ultimately, I would say I failed in not creating a love triangle because I created a love dodecahedron with a harem. But Bianca's obsession, excessive obsession, which you do not like that wording. That's what you told me. You said you did not. When I told you about Bianca's fatal flaw, you were like, I don't like the word obsession.
Did I?
Yeah.
What word did I give it as a replacement then?
You did not give me a word.
We'll call it obsession.
Yeah. So, I think this was one of the most brilliant fatal flaws I ever came up with. And I had to come up with quite a few fatal flaws for this one. Obsession. Wow. You would think obsession is just bad anytime, but you would be surprised. I was obsessed with finishing this, and it worked out okay.
Except for all those lost hours of sleep, and you know the whole like up at 3 a.m.s and the other stuff. You know,
whatever, man. Excessive obsession. Wow, that's just... Yeah, so I ultimately failed in not creating a love triangle. But I made it a key plot point, and it was supposed to be insanely depressing. And it wasn't her fault. Let's make this clear. It wasn't her fault that she was obsessed with Percy. I expected a lot of backlash when I first introduced that she was obsessed with him. I did not get it. So I did not get the backlash. So I was surprised.
I mean, didn't they kind of indicate it even in canon? The original canon, didn't she like? She was originally like, "Oh, hi there."
She kind of indicated to him, like there was the kiss at the end of Titan's Curse, which there was a reviewer.
Well, in your series, yeah.
Yeah, there was indications that she may have had feelings for him, or at least he was the most likely candidate if she was going to have a significant other. But he was already taken. Let's face it. So, in that sense, whatever. Love triangles suck. They're stupid.
Then why are... Okay.
When no one wins, they suck.
Okay.
I was going to say something else about Bianca. Oh, yeah. I had a reviewer who was really confused at the end of Titan's Curse and and they were like, "So kissing equals lost virginity?" Question mark. Because like the idea was that Bianca gave up her blessing from Artemis by kissing Percy. Yeah. And they never say anything about it being explicitly sexual. They just say that they have to forego the company of men. Right. So,
I mean, that makes more sense.
Physical intimacy, relations, stuff like that does count for me. Bianca and Percy did not have to have sex. I would argue it makes sense. Yeah, right. Bianca did not have to have sex with Percy in order to lose that blessing. To put it bluntly. Hey, him and Annabeth pork. Come on.
I don't like when you say that word. I don't mind obsession. I don't like when you call it just porking. That makes it so insensitive, you know? For them, it's a real moment. You know?
Yeah, it is. But for me, it's just another scene.
Like, I get that. But I'm just saying, if you're about to die, if you're 90% certain you're about to die, and you're with the girl of your dreams, and you've got one night left, what the hell are you doing?
Fine.
Okay. Moving on.
In fact, we are adding that to a scene we're talking about. Percy x Annabeth sexing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just going to say porky.
Sexing.
This kid. I don't know why you called you kid. You're the same age as me.
You're older, right?
Marginally so.
Like by a few months.
Couple months, yeah.
You can call me kid, but don't.
That's weird. I'm good, thanks.
Alright, so next character. Well, okay, next point. Zoe is introduced. We already talked about her. Moving on. What I do like about Zoe in Titan's Curse specifically is that the whole thematic arc of Titan's Curse was superiority. Everyone except for Bianca has a superiority complex. Talia does, obviously, because of her fatal flaw. Percy does because of the first two books, how he was kind of the dominant demigod up until Talia showed up. And Zoe, of course, does because hunters are pricks. So the whole thematic through line of Titan's Curse was the idea of superiority. And throughout the book, the only person that I think overcomes that is Zoe. Because she's basically forced to eat her dirt, or eat Percy's dirt, in terms of admitting that he's actually a decent guy. So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Thoughts? Question mark?
Brain function? What?
Brain function? What?
No, I don't have it right now.
Alright. So, next we have the Nemean lion scene.
Still not snowing.
We're supposed to get snow at 4, and it's supposed to be 6 inches. It's and I do not want...
Pun.
And I do not want to shovel. But anyway, the Nemean lion fight.
That was cool. That was really cool.
Besides Polyphemus, up until Last Olympian, that might be my favorite fight. Not so much the fight itself, but the ending. That moment when he first creates those swords.
The water blades.
Yeah. That is badass. And this is one of the few times I used a numerical value to judge strength. Where I explained that the hunter's bows are 5 times sturdier, durable than celestial bronze. And then the Nemean lion just kind of snaps it in half. Yeah. So then just the whole shit moment, like, he can create something stronger than that. Yeah. Like, he has that strength. He has that power.
That's very cool.
And then, of course, this incredible leap in ability and power is then subverted when he totally gets rocked by Atlas. I love subverting things.
For a small amount of time, and then,
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of a god's life, that's kind of small. Come to think of it. Oh well. So yeah, the impact, I guess, is wow. Percy is a badass. That's the impact. That's the whole thing. That chapter probably
it shows a hint of his potential, and it's like, oh, he's not the weakest in the group, actually.
Yeah. And up until that point, he really kind of was portrayed as such. Like, he had the thing with the Colossus in the junkyard, but that was, essentially him being a total idiot.
Mm-hmm.
and it just happening
That
to
was
work out.
that was a very canon-like Percy moment.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, oh, idiot idea. Hey, it works.
But the context of the scene was that he was so pent up with frustration and bitterness at the fact that Talia and Zoe were running the show. And it really kind of... It highlighted a major character flaw with Percy in that he is a selfish motherfucker.
Well, he's very dominant.
Yeah.
You know, and that shows also when he gets the wolf moniker. It's just like, you know, that's what he wants to be. He wants to be top dog. So.
Yeah, essentially. Ow! My neck is stiff. Off topic. So, next scene we have is Percy v. Atlas, or moreover that entire final battle of Titan's Curse. I wrote that in about 3 hours, and then I didn't finish the last part of that chapter for another 2 days. So I was really hyped for that fight, and I think I executed it pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say. It's very cool to see Percy get his ass handed to him.
Yeah, kind of first fight with a Titan. Damn, that was...
Gets wrecked.
That's such a crushing blow.
Major wreck.
Especially when we see how far Percy has come as a warrior. Just to see, like... Yes, he may be technically more skilled than Atlas, but it's
skill. His small amount of skill was just completely overwhelmed by sheer power.
Yeah.
You know.
A wall too high to climb, as Percy said. That was a great scene, by the way. When he just... That was so cool. Okay, so speaking of that, Zoe's memento... I said it was in the shape of a tooth. That's a reference.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's a reference to her thing as a Hesperide with the dragon thing. The dragon thing guarding the golden apples. It was that tooth kind of thing. References, blah, 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 blah. Never made. I was originally going to include a scene with the dragon.
Oh, that would have been cool.
But I didn't have a way to differentiate it from the canon. So I was like, I don't need it. Besides, it would have kind of undermined Luke's struggle, because that was the thing he failed to do. He tried to fail to get the golden apple, and that's how he got the scar.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I ultimately decided not to put it in. Artemis dies, kind of kicks the Olympians' butts into high gear, preparing for the Titans. Nico dies. Bianca has her first mental break. What else?
Well, Percy confronts Poseidon eventually. But
that was a really hard scene to write, by the way.
That's where he just denounces him straight up, right?
No, this was the scene where Poseidon kind of wrecks him verbally and then starts to walk away, and Percy just yells and silences all the Olympians, just look at me kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was really hard to write.
Well, wait, but doesn't Percy kind of denounce Poseidon at the end of that, though?
No, he's like,
I don't want to be associated with you anymore?
No, he's like, I fought in your name, like, what more do you want from a son who you don't acknowledge? And Poseidon just kind of demeans him further and then walks away, and that's it. Percy just left him kind of an emotional rut throughout all the Battle of the Labyrinth.
That's right.
So we saw a bit of Poseidon's better side at the end of Sea of Monsters when he promises that once Tyson reforms that he will take care of him, and says for Percy to take the shield, which ultimately gets wrecked by Atlas. Symbolism. That was meant for Tyson. So this really solidified that Poseidon, while he did acknowledge Percy as a person in that context, he still didn't acknowledge him as a son, which is what Percy wanted. So really, Poseidon's just a brick. Moving on. Battle of the Labyrinth adaptation. Not really much in terms of huge scenes, except for Bianca's psychotic break.
Which is cool. But
big things, the main narrative through line of Battle of the Labyrinth is inferiority, where both of the main characters, Percy and Annabeth, feel incredibly inferior to both each other and to everyone else around them. Wow, that was depressing adaptation.
It worked well though, because you gave them a place to fall down to then stand back up for the last one. And they had a place to grow from, and that really is probably what helped you climax it so well. You know.
Yeah, I think this is where they earned a lot of the climaxes, as you said.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't. If I were to rewrite the Battle of the Labyrinth adaptation, is that a scratch? It's a scratch. That was like dust on the wall. But anyway, if I were to rewrite it, I would not make the reference to the final line of the prophecy, War's First Bloodshed. I would, when Percy, or when Annabeth kind of claws at Percy's face, I would not make a reference to that. I would just kind of have it implied, not stated outright, because I thought that was a bit too on the nose, reading it back. But that okay, minor tangent, that prophecy, dude, the prophecies in this book were so fun to write.
Yeah, he's been very hyped for these prophecies, and the next one is very cool too. The
second great prophecy.
That was one of the times you texted me at 2 a.m. It was like, dude, I figured this out. No response until like 6 a.m. Like, what? Like, I figured this out.
But it's so cool.
You gonna read it for us?
I'm going to read it for myself. Dude, it's so cool. I love the second great prophecy. If I were to make a major change to how I wrote this, I would rewrite the Great Prophecy. Like, straight up, just rewrite it, because that Great Prophecy sucks. Terrible!
Yeah.
One burned and one fallen must risk it all. Two sides alone, eons of hatred and thrall. 3 fatal choices, only one will mend. 4 Earth's last chance, destined 7 rend. 5 natural giants, a storm will brew. 6 pure forces and a light break through. 7 half-bloods will answer the call. United they stand, divided they fall. That's such powerful rhetoric.
It's very
And I know it's tooting my own horn. All of writers are egotistical. But that's so powerful.
It's just cool, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to be very cool to see what happens with that.
You know what happens.
Okay, but speaking for the audience who has no clue, and they're like, well, are you going to tell us? Are you going to tell us?
I'm not fucking telling you anything, impatient pricks.
You know what you could do?
What?
If you were really feeling generous, is you could probably read the first chapter.
Ooh, that's tempting.
Read it at the end of this.
Sure.
So for a reward, maybe for those of them who've actually listened to all of our rambling for the past
Hour and a half
now.
Sure, I'm game. I have it written. I have it. I mean, this probably.
If you don't want to, you don't have
to.
No.
I think it's actually a good idea.
Okay.
This is probably. I'm not going to read it right now, but this is not the final version of this chapter.
Okay. Well, I mean that's fair because then this one's read. So if it's not the end of it.
But back to Cruel Spider.
Right, yes.
We already talked about Person in the Best Depression, how they overcome it. They overcome it basically the same way, in that they find strength in each other. And this is where Percy's narrative...
Well, isn't Percy's also a little... Both of them, actually, it's a little bit of coming to terms that they can do stuff themselves, too. You know?
They can do
it's
stuff...
Percy when he nukes the volcano... and it's Annabeth when she protects the demigods against Daedalus and the monsters.
Yeah, and it's really coming into their own as people, I think. And originally, this was going to be the end of Percy's development. I didn't have a plan for The Last Olympian, and as I started writing Last Olympian, I realized, wow, that's not going to work. So then I started thinking, well, this can't be the end. Like, he's just kind of where Luke is, and Luke is the villain. So then I started thinking about, well, whatever. We'll get to it in The Last Olympian. So...
Yeah, we're still going to be doing this for at least another 45 minutes.
Bianca's psychotic break was a scene that I enjoyed writing because I'm a sick fuck. Nothing much to say on it, other than the fact that it was extremely satisfying to bring her back. And that was kind of the idea with her. It's just she is right at the brink of madness to where she can control it, but she always has to be aware of it to keep it under control.
And I do like that, like, it's obsessive when she can lock eyes on it, but as soon as she, as long as she's covering her eyes, she can ignore it, kind of.
Yeah, it's like
she maintains her sanity.
Yeah, the inspiration that I took was the saying, like if you set your eyes on something, like set your sights on something.
Don't lose sight of your goal or whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. Daedalus was a character that was way better in this, I felt.
Yeah, that was cool, too.
I got a lot of, like, whoa moments, like, with reviews. They were like, whoa, Daedalus is with Minos. Whoa.
Yeah, that was a nice twist.
People wanted Minos to die, dude. I don't blame them.
And they were given it. They were given a gruesome death.
Oh, that was so satisfying. I hated Minos. Minos sucked.
His soul is basically ripped apart.
Yeah, ripped apart, limb by limb. Dude, that was so badass.
That was really cool.
An eye for an eye.
Oh, God.
So, Daedalus... Okay, so... Daedalus, the idea I had was... I didn't want him to be on the side of the demigods, because that didn't make sense. Really. Mm-hmm. Because if I was having Minos control Bianca, then why not have him also control Daedalus? It would make sense. He's a schemer.
Mm-hmm.
Really, Minos was the main villain. It's just that Daedalus was the final physical obstacle for Percy to overcome. Which, I don't know, it's something. Speaking of the final battle, though...
that was cool.
It was cool.
It was a very cool battle.
I would not put it in my top 5. Surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, top 5 for me so far is probably the Atlas one goes first.
Yeah.
And then in no particular order after that, then you have the Cronus one, just because. Nemean Lion, obviously. Probably... Ooh, let's see here.
I liked Polyphemus, personally.
I think that one was pretty good. And the one of the confrontations with Luke, I'm trying to remember which one. Might have even been the first one when he gets his ass kicked. I don't know. I felt like that one was cool, too.
Yeah. So, I would not put it in the top 5, simply because... I had very little creative intention with it. I essentially wrote it as I watched the 1-minute melee between Sora and Link. Which, that's an excellent video. Just everyone go watch it. It's so cool. But I drew a lot of... Basically, I stole that because I didn't want to come up with something better. Because I thought, this would fit so well. That's all I thought about. But I do think it's a good fight. I do think I wrote it fairly well. It was a bit long, in my opinion. But overall, it would probably be in top 10 fights. He's writing something down. He's got an idea.
It's for later. You're good.
Okay.
Keep talking.
So, yeah. I did like it, and I especially loved... My favorite ending to an adaptation probably is the... like, after everything is said and done, after the battle is over, my favorite ending in terms of that part is probably Battle of the Labyrinth. It's short, it's sweet, and we have a great moment where Winona is chasing Bianca, trying to get her blindfold off, and it's fucking adorable. I just like those two characters so much. They're my favorite.
I do like... I really grew to like Winona, especially once the final book happens and...
everything goes to shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, power balancing. We're getting to that part 2. Daedalus had invented better, essentially not better versions, but altered versions of Olympian sacred objects. He'd created a replica of Kronos' sword, or Luke's sword, and he shoots the thing. And at first, Percy just can't handle it. Once again, kind of highlights what a fucking rut he's in. Like, he should have grown stronger. He knows this, and yet he didn't. And then in the final battle of the Labyrinth battle thing.
How many times can we have battle into the sentence?
Daedalus shoots not 1, but 2 right at him, and Percy just builds up all of his latent energy and just slashes right through them. Oh, yes! But you guys didn't pick up on that because you're scrubs. No, it was much more a writer's thing. I know. Trust me, I get it. But yeah, that was a big like yes moment for me. But yeah, that's part 2. Part 3's coming up. Anything to say about Battle Labyrinth before we move on? Pants sitting too long.
No, I don't think so. I know I enjoyed reading it. I've really enjoyed just reading your whole thing as you've gone through it. Polyphemus,
the prison. That was his idea, by the way.
Oh yes, with the it was the different pockets of time. I almost imagined it as if that each one there was like hallways, and then up on pedestals were like boxes that had see-through like force fields, for lack of a better term, and once you stepped in it, you were in that different pocket of time.
Yeah.
So
that was a really cool idea.
It worked well, I think, for Prometheus and all that. So
Prometheus, dude, what a bastard.
He's a tricky bastard.
Yeah.
I still don't know what side he's on.
I still don't know what side he's on.
No one knows what side he's on. He's on his own side. He's like the Deadpool of the Percy Jackson series.
I mean, you're not wrong.
You could write him like that.
He's not.
Just start making cameos here and there.
I will tell you guys that Prometheus does not reappear in United We Stand. As right now. As of right now in my planning. Moving on to Last Olympian, we have... This is by far going to be the longest section in terms of adaptation discussion. First thing I want to talk about is structure. I did not like how The Last Olympian OG was structured, in that it did not feel like a war. It felt like just the same shit that Riordan wrote in the previous 4 books. In that, wow, they're presented with a situation that has to do with the Greek myths. Let's tell the audience, let's tell Percy, and by extension the audience, about the Greek myths. Boring.
Yeah, I can see.
Like, Prometheus's thing was that the urn, which was Pandora's box, and it's like, that's so boring. Have them fight. The only battles, I think, that I remember from The Last Olympian were the battle with Selena and Clarice versus the Drakon.
Mm-hmm.
Battle with Percy and Grover with the nature spirits against Hyperion. Or not Hyperion. Yeah, Hyperion.
Yep, that was it.
And then Percy and Annabeth versus Ethan and Luke Kronos. On Olympus.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only 3 battles that I remember. Now, granted, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 battles. So I extended that fairly a lot. It was very draining on me as a writer. I don't want to write any more fight scenes for the rest of my fucking life.
I'm calling bullshit on that, because they're really cool. There are some really cool ones. That Atlas one, what we're getting to in a little bit.
So pre-war, so I essentially structured Last Olympian into 4 little sections. One of them was the pre-war, pre-blowing up of the what's the name, Princess Andromeda, and then the next 3 are divided into the different days. First day was the battles at the blowing up the Princess Andromeda. There was battling the double attack of Recon and fighting the Cetus.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That was really cool.
With Zoe and Percy and stuff. Yeah.
That
was very cool, especially with the
lightning bolt.
The lightning bolt?
Where she leaps out of the water.
I was going to say, where we have a little bit of Poseidon, like, he's actually useful in there.
Yeah.
You know, he shows up for a moment and
Percy's just like,
can you slow those guys down? Like, yeah, hang on. Okay, let's talk. You know, let's talk business.
Poseidon's a business man.
Let's talk business.
So, and then the last part of the first day was the Williamsburg Bridge battle.
Mm-hmm.
Huge mistake. So, and then the second part was the battle with Atlas. That deserves its own part because Atlas. And then the third day was the final section where first is the Drakons. It was Bianca, Winona, and Zoe, and Hades, and Grover versus Hyperion. And it was Percy versus Luke. Crow Luke. God, so much writing.
I'm sorry.
You have
I'm
ideas,
making
dude.
this useful. I'm trying to be useful. That's my job description.
You
be useful.
always are useful, dude. Even if I just get to bounce ideas off of you, dude. Because you know which ones suck. But anyway, enough of
behind the scenes.
even though this is entirely behind the scenes. So the pre-war battles are, Percy and Talia versus Iapetus. That's essentially set up for later. Just ignore it. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter in that it shows how much Percy and Talia have matured since Titan's Curse when they last interacted heavily. To where they can at least... They may not be friends, so to speak, but they can attempt to understand each other and attempt to kind of work together. And I think they worked out fairly well. Didn't kill Iapetus, but they knocked him into Tartarus. That might come back to haunt them later.
If anyone were to ever end up in Tartarus for some ever weird reason.
Perhaps because...
Who knows? Yeah.
Alright, no more talking. And remember, Iapetus is not Bob in this one. His memories were not erased. Spooky foreshadowing. He might come back. Zoe and the Hunters versus Kronos on the Princess Andromeda, trying to take it out early. That failed. This is where Zoe doesn't first learn, but kind of solidifies her opinion that we probably shouldn't attack. We should probably just focus on defense. Which, they of course follow to a T. They never attack the Titans ever. And of course, I'm lying to my teeth. So, that fails. This is where we get introduced to the 2 Drakons, not just the one. Because I thought the one sucked. And I wanted one that can fly. And I wanted one where I could insert a volleyball stupid idea. Because I needed that one last stupid idea. That shit was hype, dude.
It was awesome.
So, the last thing I have here for the pre-war battles was character interactions. We already talked about them. Moving on. First 2 battles, which is the Princess Andromeda and the Cetus battle.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I have here is more character interactions. This is where Percy's final part of his arc begins, where he kind of, everyone is a hero of their own story kind of thing.
And that's the talk with Beckendorf.
That's the talk with Beckendorf. That's the talk with Zoe after the battle with the Cetus.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the talk with Zoe after the Battle of Williamsburg. Talking. So much
almost
talking.
done.
Almost done. Only like an hour left.
Way back.
Whoa! Living on a prayer.
We're never going to get done. It's going to be 10 feet of snow out there by the time we're done.
Is it snowing yet?
No.
Damn it.
Do you want it to snow?
Not really.
I mean, it's probably still above freezing out.
My phone says 39 degrees.
Mine says 35.
Well, mine's inaccurate, so you're just probably right.
It also says it's snowing, and unless it's very tiny flurries, I see nothing.
God.
Oh well.
Yep.
Anyway.
So,
first here.
Yeah.
We have to go to there.
And we have to go to there.
No. Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, dear Lord, indeed. So, first 2 battles, Princess Andromeda. Beckendorf is suicidal. Sad face. Sexy cry, teardrop, single tear down the face. And then we move on. I don't want to talk about Selena. We already talked enough about her. So we're going to move on to the battles, because that was fun.
Yeah.
The battle with the Cetus was a last-minute decision. I really wanted another fight, and I wanted it to be Percy and Zoe, because I wanted to establish them as a team before the Atlas battle.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't really get the chance because she sits out of the Williamsburg battle because she thinks it's a stupid idea, and she's correct.
Right.
And they don't go together on the Princess Andromeda. So I wanted to establish their teamwork. I looked for sea monsters in Greek mythology, and I came up with 0. And then I searched deeper for fish monsters, and I found the Cetus. And there was 2 myths, and the only thing I found was These heroes defeated the Cetus, and it was described as a sea monster. That's all I found from it. So I had to invent...
you basically invented the Cetus.
I invented the Cetus.
It's pretty cool.
It wasn't that hard, but whatever.
He's modest.
It wasn't that hard.
Anyway.
The Cetus is killed. It was a battle. It happened. Zoe and Percy, at this point, are basically equal in power. Well, when Zoe's not in her divine form. Let's face it. You're giving me the weirdest stare. Let's just...
I can't wait to see the comment section of this video.
They're gonna ship us, dude. It's gonna be weird. Alright. You didn't see this, but he fell off of his chair.
That didn't go as according to plan. Okay. Continuing on. I'll just sit here awkwardly.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Battle of Williamsburg. Percy makes the stupidest decision in the entire story. Decides to take the offensive, take the fight to them. Take a fight on their terms. This is where Percy's fatal flaw really comes into focus. Now, if I were to just say Percy's biggest flaw as a fighter is that he does not wait for his opponent to attack. He always is the first to make the move. We will see this come up, I promise. And this is what we see here. Percy does not wait for the Titans to attack. He does not wait to fight on the home turf. He fights on the Titans' turf. And ultimately, it leads to Michael Yu's death. It leads to Clarice's supposed death. It leads to Ethan being blinded for life. It ain't a good time. Annabeth is, of course, stabbed with a poison knife, because I thought that was one of the only scenes that was actually good in the original Last Olympian.
It created some useful drama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it provided a reason for me to have Percy go alone.
Well, yeah, that's
against
actually...
Atlas.
Yes, that's very true.
So, hooray. Hooray, plot devices.
That's all writing is.
And at this point, Percy does not have the Achilles curse.
Right, yeah.
Which I thought that was one of the stupidest things that Riordan did, was give it to him like right away.
Yeah, I agree.
It provided no drama.
Right, because he was 99% indestructible. Right?
Yeah, and you'll notice that the only time that Percy doesn't fight a Titan when he has Achilles curse is against the Drakon.
Yeah.
Which is after it's already preordained, essentially, that he is the hero of the Great Prophecy because
right.
of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So there wouldn't have been any... So whether he had the curse or not at that point would not have mattered.
Right. But
so
you
I thought
need
that was
the
clever.
curse to beat Atlas.
To beat Atlas, to beat Kronos, to beat the Drakons. Dude. One of my favorite scenes is when he actually gets the curse. When you see the older version of Annabeth. That may come back later. Foreshadowing. Give me a foreshadow filter. Storm clouds above. But yeah, that was a really cool scene for me. In the book, it sucked, but for me, it was good. For this book, it was good. Next, we have Ethan's loyalties. This is my next thing for the Battle of Williamsburg Bridge. Ethan, I think, is an interesting character. Not very focused on, but I do think he was an interesting character, where it really says a lot to me about his relationship with Luke before he turned traitor, double traitor. In that his loyalties lie with his word, not with the Olympians or with the Titans necessarily. Which is, as you might recall, Luke's fatal flaw, excessive honor. He's basically bound to keep a promise. And Ethan, it seems, had that rubbed off on him. So I think that really tells of their relationship before Ethan turned traitor. And then, of course, I don't know. I just think his loyalty, that question is fairly interesting, and it does serve to provide some nice balance with him and Selena, as they're basically on opposite sides, yet on the same side, and they're the same ideologically. So it's a very interesting dynamic between them, even though they only had one conversation. Shut up. But yeah, thoughts?
I concur.
I didn't like that Ethan was like essentially the final opponent for Percy in the books.
Yeah.
Whereas Annabeth was left to fight Kronos. I didn't like that.
I like what you did with Ethan. I felt like that was very interesting. It kind of showed the duality of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's easy to sway into the light or the dark.
Yeah.
And it's, it can be hard sometimes to draw a line. Where is good versus evil?
Yeah.
And the honest truth is there really isn't a line. It's just a grayscale.
It's a matter of perspective.
Perspective.
Slogan for Crossfighter.
Perspective.
The last thing I have here for Valiant Bloom's Workbridge is Michael Yu's death. Michael Yu, I did not... Sad face.
Yeah.
I did not characterize him all that well, but what makes a character's death good, or at least one way to make it good, is if you didn't develop the character, you show what the character meant to the other characters.
Yeah.
Michael Yu, besides Percy, was the best swordsman at Camp Half-Blood. Winona had the hots for him, which is kind of weird, because they're half-brother and half-sister.
Does it count on the godly side, do you think?
Yeah, that's my thought, because technically Percy and Annabeth are cousins.
Yeah.
That's weird.
You can't count the godly side.
Yeah.
Otherwise...
It's just creepy.
I mean, that's how most of Greek mythology goes, is like, Zeus just had to stuff his dick in it, That's even a lot of things are connected in Greek.
Even his sister.
We're going to ignore that and move on.
So, Michael Yu did mean a lot to camp, and his death, while we may not have known him all that well, it did ring aloud for much of camp, especially Winona. Like, we see how she grapples with death and loss, which is not well. And it takes someone like Bianca, who has more of a nonchalant attitude towards death because she has talked to the souls of the dead before they seem happy. And it is kind of a sobering thought to think that someone that that Winona ultimately has to confront is that she can't save everyone. And that's something she will have to grapple with again in United We Stand.
Is that Winona's fatal flaw is having to deal with the fact that she can't protect everyone she loves?
Excessive protectiveness?
It could be.
That's brilliant, dude.
New idea.
New idea!
This is how it works.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
Done.
Love it. All right, that's going in. Thanks, dude.
You're welcome. No problem.
So yeah, that was Michael Yu's death. Next section, Battles of Fractured Lines. I just came up with that when I was writing the outline. I should have made that. So this is the final 2 days. Fractured lines because it fractures a line between mortal and God.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
And the line between Olympian and not Olympian because the Rogues end up fighting for the Olympians by the end.
That's a good point. There you go.
So yeah, fractured lines.
Missed opportunity. Oh well.
Percy versus Atlas happened. Best fight in the entire book.
In the series, possibly.
Yeah.
I put it as my number one.
So far.
Well, okay, but we're not including the
United We Stand yet.
Yeah,
because they're not written.
Because if you go by what you told me, those immediately take first place. And I don't even know if I can take it between some of those final battles because they might have to they are gonna all tie for 3 or first.
Dude, that's gonna be so epic.
It blows my mind, honestly.
By the way, I'm not going to adapt Trials of Apollo ever, or Magnus Chase, or the Kane Chronicles.
Yeah.
Never going to do it, because this is as far as I could take it, dude. I
think you'd go insane if you had to adapt all of it.
I'm doing what Gurren Lagann did for the super mecha genre, which is I'm blowing it up to a proportion that realistically it could not go any further in terms of power.
Like One Punch Man scaling.
Yeah.
Just like,
I can't go any farther. My brain cannot comprehend how
awesome it is.
How it would happen. It couldn't happen.
It's just mind blown.
Now, granted, the characters won't be able to access that power all the time.
That'd be more broken.
Yeah, but we can't go any further. We can't. It's impossible.
I like what's next on the list. Do we really have to add it right there?
So Percy and Atlas happen. We're still on that.
Okay.
Best fight.
Yeah.
Really the end of Percy's character arc. And he ultimately then has to imprint that knowledge onto Luke for the final battle. Really great moment. Had a lot of great reaction to it. It was just insanely fun to write. I texted him at 3 in the morning. And I was like... I may have gone a bit overboard because I texted him the word count and it was like 9,000. So that was fun. It was so fun to write.
So cool, though.
That was so cool. That was so cool! Blood swords, dude.
Blood blades.
Best idea ever. Definitely has not been used ever. It's definitely original. I'm sure someone's used it.
You know what? If you take it to the level we've briefly discussed for United We Stand.
Oh my god, dude. That's so
that no one has ever taken it to.
Probably not.
Why'd we have to get there?
Okay, so next section, beginning of the end. This is the final day. We're in the home stretch, boys. We've been talking about Last Living for like half an hour already.
Oh my gosh. This is nuts.
Percy and Annabeth sexing. They have sex. They are Annabeth's pregnant. That's a thing. Surprise. The very most recent review I got was teenage pregnancy ? And I'm like, well, they're both legal adults.
Yeah.
Both 18. Annabeth's older than him. By a few months, maybe.
I was definitely surprised by that one at first, too. When he first told me about that, I was like, what? Okay. And then he told me some of his later plans with that. And I was like, whoa. So, it might seem a little weird now, but just hang on. I think it'll work well later, even though he is doing that.
I can't wait.
Write it then.
It's harder than it looks.
I know.
Oh my god, okay. Olympians versus Dracons. I had this planned out since before I started writing Titan's Curse. So that was what? Before, like in September?
I was going to say that's like August, September time, I think.
Oh my god. I had this idea for so long where Percy, Talia, and a child of Hades just combined their powers in a volleyball spike. I have no idea why I came up with it like that, but god, that's so badass.
And
moving on.
It added a little bit of levity too, because he had to throw in some levity where it could be fit in, because otherwise it was just there was a lot of heavy, a lot
drama.
of people dying.
People die when they're killed.
What? That's
Selena's sacrifice.
Yeah,
was our next thing.
Yeah,
it happens. It's much more gruesome in this version, where where her stomach gets clawed open.
That was a little bit of a surprise.
Rogue demigod loyalties. They switch sides. Now they are not with the Olympians. I didn't explain this, but minor spoilers for like the first 2 chapters of United We Stand. They are not allowed back in Camp Half-Blood. They do want to be near it, however, in case the Olympians need them. Reason that they are like that is because Percy kind of takes charge of them, kind of is their guardian, so to speak. They have a little encampment of their own out in the woods, and Percy kind of keeps watch over them. Kind of stuff like that. So they're loyal to him in the same way that he is loyal to the people around him, rather than the Olympians.
It's kind of cool, though. It kind of builds him up and shows that he is an alpha. It's very cool. You're really struggling, aren't you?
Dude, these shorts suck. Final thing we have for this one is Percy's realization, and that is when he's on the stairs, and the Minotaur is choking him out, and he just kind of has to devolve briefly into that wild, bestial,
the animal.
like survival kind of thing, and he kind of has that realization of like, holy shit, this is what it was like for Luke.
Yeah.
Like, throughout the entire journey to Camp Half-Blood, and then that final crushing blow. Like, it wasn't about... And that, I think, is the most poignant thing that was said, is that it's not about good or evil, it's about survival.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think really drove home to Percy about, like, I get it. I understand how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Fun times. This is just a happy-go-lucky story. Nothing bad happens. Sure, that's a lie. Battle of Olympus. Divine Flame. I changed it from what was it?
Sacred Flame or something like that.
No, it was a Cursed Blade, I think. Shall we? Because it was Annabeth's dagger.
Oh, that part.
I changed it because that sucked. I thought it was stupid. So I changed it.
Yeah.
No other reason. Percy versus Crow Luke. Blurring the line between man and god. Percy is a badass. Nothing more needs to be said. Luke's change of heart, I wanted to address this a little bit. Like the rogue demigods, he's not loyal to the Olympians. He's publicly denounced them. We get brief mention of the fact that demigods who don't acknowledge the gods don't go to the underworld when they die. Like, they might... Or at least they won't interpret it as the underworld. You know what I mean? So, this is going to come up later. May or may not. You don't know. Yeah, you know. It's 3:52, dude.
I know.
We've been here for like 4 hours.
Almost, yeah. I know.
I talk for way too long.
Probably need to do all of it. I don't know if you're going to need to... Oh, we'll just keep running through and just see what happens.
Keep going.
Yeah, just keep plugging away like you do at your chapters.
Yeah. So, he is not loyal to the Olympians. He does not go to the underworld, or at least he does not interpret going to the underworld. Where he does go, we don't know. Okay. Yeah. That's for later. Or never. I don't know. Luke's sacrifice... The choice, I think, was very poorly defined in the books. In The Last Olympian proper. What was Percy's choice?
Was die or kill him, right?
Yeah. I think it was, I think the choice the wiki says it was giving Luke the dagger to kill himself rather than trying to kill him with the dagger. Like, it was very poor. So, this choice was deciding to, like, die, or putting down the barrier and allowing Luke to sacrifice himself. So that was his choice. And then Luke does, and then there's that really, really, really sad moment where I cried when I wrote it, where Luke talks to his father for a brief moment.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And then that
was very, very touching, and I got teary-eyed too.
And then when he shows Percy all of the different timelines that Chronos showed him, where everything could have turned out better. And then the final moments, we want our friends back.
That was a sad one too.
If you need a champion, just call me.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're expecting a child. They run back.
Well, shit.
And then the second great prophecy. One burned and one fallen must risk it all. Two sides alone, eons of hatred and thrall. 3 fatal choices, only one will mend. For Earth's last chance, destined 7 rend. 5 natural giants, a storm will brew. 6 pure forces, and the light break through. 7 half-bloods will answer the call. United they stand, divided they fall.
I think that's so cool that you have that memorized. That's freaking badass. That's very, very cool. Okay.
Overall thoughts?
Well, I mean, I came up with some questions to ask you at the end.
Go ahead.
Okay. So my first one, I guess, was what first inspired you to start this project?
I read it. I read Titan's Curse again.
You reread the Titan's Curse in senior year of high school, and then you were like,
I should write this again.
I should write this and make it better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I watched Hunter x Hunter again. I watched some of the
That's
best
right,
ones.
yeah. He got into
Oh, it's such a good show!
Where do you draw some of your places of inspiration? Well, we got that one.
Oh, that's basically it.
Anime, occasionally movies and TV shows.
Yeah. I draw my inspiration from a lot of media. I've drawn some of my ideological inspiration in terms of the characters from like political debates, like basically anything that that someone says something even remotely profound or something that I haven't heard before. I like to consider it, and I like to be inspired. It's a lot of writers tend to think that their ideas are the best, and their ideas are so original, and their ideas are like, you know, very, very, you know, super, like no one's done this before. No, everyone has done everything before. Your job as a writer is not to make something new. Your job as a writer is to make something great. What I wrote here is not new. There were scenes that are directly taken from it, from other sources. None of the character arcs are anything new. They've happened before. What I think I succeeded in doing was
making it much better.
Making it an enjoyable experience. Making it something that people can remember. And something that can say something about your life. Like, what does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to be a hero in someone's eyes? You know, it's those kind of questions that I want to raise. It's that kind of story that I wanted to tell. And I think I succeeded, personally.
Yeah. I've got just a couple more. If you could give any quick tips to maybe any others who are interested in writing, what would you say to them?
Start writing. The hardest part about writing
is to get started, right?
Is to actually sit down and start writing. I think the easiest way to overcome this is to make a daily word count goal. During Battle of the Labyrinth, I wrote 2,000 words a day. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but if I did write less, then the next day I wrote enough to make up for it. A daily word count goal is useful. You cannot wait to be inspired, because being inspired is meaningless. Being inspired makes you write worse, because then you ignore all of the flaws because you're so inspired and because you think your idea is so great. Like, you can be hyped for something. I'm fucking hyped for United We Stand and my original work, but I am not particularly inspired to write it, because I know that if I am inspired, then I will really lack focus. So sit down, write, make a daily word count goal, meet that goal, and reward yourself for it. You know, just write. And write a lot. You're not going to... let me tell you this. Do not look up how to write. You're not going to learn that way. You learn to write by writing, and you learn to write by watching things and reading things that you enjoy writing. And your goal as a writer is to write something that you would enjoy reading. And that is something that I really take to heart.
Thank you. I guess my next question is just kind of be like, when could we possibly expect to hear about your original series?
The first book is written. He's going to read it, hopefully, eventually when he gets the time. As for when it's going to be published, I'm going to try to get it sent to a publisher. I'm going to try that for maybe a couple months. If that doesn't work out, I will self-publish through Amazon probably, which costs money, which I don't want to spend all at once because I do have other purchases to make, including trying to move out because I still live with my parents because I'm a loser.
You're not a loser.
I know.
You just got out of
high
school
like
a year ago.
I know, it's just a joke. But I do want to... Getting it published is not a huge priority because I may want to make changes, and I have much bigger priorities in terms of my own living. So, a year, 2 years, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Whenever I get the time.
And then I guess the last one that probably most of them are wondering is like, We Stand. When do we hope to see chapters start appearing on your major stupid page again.
I haven't the faintest idea.
Alright.
I am on chapter 4, but I do not want to post until I have everything down pat. So that could be in the middle of Son of Neptune. That could be at the end of House of Hades. That could be after I finish the entire thing. I don't know. So, if I had to make a rough estimate, expect it sometime in the summer. Maybe. At the latest, by the start of 2019.
So you've got some waiting to do, guys.
Because writing is really time-consuming, guys. I promise I try. So then, overall thoughts on Cruel Spider. We have a couple more to go through. We have a couple more bullet points.
Okay.
Overall thoughts. This is my favorite thing I've ever written.
I was going to say...
Overall.
This is honestly amazing. I was very impressed by your skills as a writer. You know, most people... There's often people who say, oh yeah, I like to write, or oh yeah, I'm a decent artist, or oh yeah, I do this and that and the other thing. And lots of people say that, but they're average, you know. But then there's occasionally people who stand out. Alex stands out as a writer, you know. I know someone who stands out as an actual, like, badass artist. You know, there are the occasional, or like an amazing singer,
right?
You know.
That's you, bro.
Nah, I don't know about that.
I haven't heard him singing since like elementary school, so I have no clue. I have no idea.
Oh my lord! But my point is I'm very excited to see where you go in the next couple of years. You know,
as am I, dude.
I think you have a very promising career as an author.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. One other advice to fledgling authors: fuck people who don't like purple prose. Don't excessively use it, but if you need emphasis, use emphasis. God, I hate... And use descriptive words like he explained, or he inquired, or he wondered, or he questioned. Don't use said. Said is fine once in a while. Don't hesitate using it. Just use other words. They're invented for a reason. God. That's probably why I'm going to have to self-publish, because I have those opinions. And publishers don't like that.
Well, they're dicks.
They are. Writers are fucking assholes. Just trust me on that. Okay, so I guess that's our overall thoughts. I wrote down my favorite chapters. So I've read that a good favorite list is 1/10 of the overall product. Or the overall thing. There are 63 chapters. I cannot do 6.3 chapters. I did 6. So, in order, from least favorite to most favorite in terms of my favorites. Number 6 is chapter 10, the first time Italians helped demigods. This was the truck scene, and I just really liked how it turned out. Nothing much more to say. Number 5, chapter 35, Let the Stars Fall Down. I put this in mostly for the battle and the conversation with Poseidon. Everything else I thought was just average chapter. But those two moments really hit home for me. But the reason it's this low is because of those other parts of the chapter, which comprise a large majority of it. Hang on, I need a drink. Number 4, chapter 47. The price of freedom is steep. This is where Percy confronts Poseidon. This is like the head of like the bulge of his parabola arc. You know what I'm saying? I just thought it was a really powerful moment where Percy finally comes out of his emotional rut, and it was very satisfying for me as an author. Like, you guys don't understand, like, when you have to look at your art until you hate it. When the characters are in an emotional rut, you find yourself in that emotional rut somewhat as well. So when he finally came out of it, it was a very cathartic experience for me. Number 3 is chapter 23. A wish is better than nothing. This is the fight with Polyphemus. This is when Percy and Annabeth become a couple. I just thought it was handled very well with those two characters. I think this is it's probably the best they've interacted with, or they've interacted. Just the Sea of Monsters in general, I think, is really good for them in terms of both arguments and cathartic making up to each other. So yeah, I just really like that. Number 2 is chapter 63. Let's see how far we've come. It's the finale. It's the height of emotional drama and weight. I really did enjoy writing it, even though it was incredibly difficult to get it right. Sorry. Luke's sacrifice got me pretty teary-eyed. Just because I had grown... Like, I didn't feel much for him, but just knowing that I created him and then I killed him off, it really hurt. Really hurt. Number 1, might not be a surprise, chapter 58, Something Worth Fighting For. The Battle of Atlas is so cool. Just the best part.
I hope you know this whole list is just going to disappear as soon as the United We Stand is finished.
You're probably right. But just the head of Percy's arc, it was the closest thing to a perfect chapter I could have written, I think, in this.
Almost done.
Almost done.
That's amazing.
Prelude to United We Stand. If you want zero spoilers, sorry, we already did. But if you want even less spoilers, I'm not going to be sharing the overall plot points. I will not be sharing any of the deaths, if they happen. I will not be sharing any of the plot twists. What I'm going to be sharing are some of the characters involved. Now, some of them may surprise you. Some of them that I don't include may surprise you as well. And then second, I'm going to share my hopes for United We Stand, in that what I want it to be. So here we go. Characters involved. Percy, Annabeth, Winona, Bianca, Reyna. I have a list. Hang on. I have a list on my phone. Let me get it up.
Leo, Jason, Piper, obviously.
Yeah. All right, starting over. Jason, Percy, Piper, Leo, Annabeth, Bianca, Reyna, Octavian, a new character named Tempest, and then Winona. Oh, I said her. Who else did I not include?
Bianca, you already said.
So characters that won't be involved. Hazel and Frank sucked. They're not going to be in here. Or at least not in any large capacity. My parents are calling.
Okay. Pardon me. No. Pardon us.
So... Yeah, I'll be right back. The struggle is real, dude.
This is why you need your own place.
Yeah!
This is why maybe we'll be getting a place.
Yeah, dude.
That would be awesome.
So hopes, it's going to be fucking huge. Like, this Cruel Spider is 300,000 words long. I'm expecting United We Stand to be around double that.
It's over 500,000, ladies and gents. That's impressive.
That's what I'm expecting. It could be less. In fact, I'm hoping it's less, because that would be less work for me. Or more. Hopefully not.
Well, unless you get really in it, you know.
I guess.
If you have some...
But I'm not...
No.
I want you guys to be a bit more open-minded. I'm going to be challenging the audience a lot more. There's not going to be clear-cut answers about what is right, what is wrong, who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. At least not all the time, like it was in this. Be patient. It's not going to start off high-octane action drama stuff like Cruel Spider ended off. But, with that said, there will be plenty of drama. There's not going to be as much comedy or snarky remarks as there was in this one, because the tone just wouldn't fit with the stuff going on.
Yeah, there might be points you could add.
I'm not going to say it's completely absent, but there's definitely going to be a bit less of it, especially once the quest gets going in the Mark of Athena adaptation. So, with that said, it's time to read the first chapter.
And I've never seen this too, so this is my first time seeing this too. This is going to be awesome.
Okay. Ready? Here we go. Excuse me, I'm not a professional audio reader. The blonde kid jolted up as if he just woke up from a deep slumber. It was an odd sensation because he could be sure that he wasn't asleep, nor did he feel the initial grogginess like he just awoke. His head was foggy, however, with a million questions running through his head all at once. The most prominent question remained at the front, and it was one he couldn't answer on his own. Who am I? It was only after a few seconds did he become aware of his surroundings. He was on a moving school bus, though how he knew what a school bus was, he didn't know. He was sitting in the aisle seat, sitting next to a girl who was looking out the window with her earbuds in. He was about to ask her for help when he realized he was holding her hand. He shifted in his seat, trying to figure out if he remembered anybody here, and the movement caught the girl's attention. She took her earbuds out and smiled. She did a hand motion, slapping the back of her fingers in her other palm, and then moving that other palm to the opposite forearm, and then pulling the other hand up. The boy couldn't tell what it was, so he ignored it. He didn't know where to start. The girl looked at him expectantly, and when he didn't do anything, she frowned. She could tell something was wrong, the kid knew that much, though he couldn't read her through her eyes, only her expression. Her eyes were this odd rainbow-type thing, like she was shining a star's light through different colored glass, resulting in a kind of kaleidoscope effect when he looked directly at them. Truthfully, it was mesmerizing. He could stare into them all day. Focus, he told himself. The blonde was about to try asking who she was, and who he was for that matter, when he was interrupted. Ah, finally awake? Another kid, looking to be around the girl's age, hung over from the seat behind theirs. He wore a pair of worker's pants and a simple white long-sleeve shirt and a black vest, but not like the formal kind. This one was more bushy and thick. He only wished that the undershirt was a darker color. All of the dirt and grime from what must have been the past month appeared on it. I tell you, Jason, I don't know how you can sleep with such shitty roads. Jason? The blonde wondered quietly. Is that my name? He asked. I know, lame, right? The small-statured, impish kid sat back in his seat, grinning. But hey, not everyone has such a badass name as Leo Valdez. Jason didn't respond, just kept looking around. Most of the kids on the bus looked their age, and most couldn't really bring themselves to look anywhere but the window. None of them were conversing. In front was an older guy in a suit whose hairline looked to have receded a long time ago. His eyes were droopy like he was tired, but Jason suspected that he just looked that way all the time. The girl beside him tapped his arm. He turned to her, thinking she would introduce herself. Instead, she did some more hand motions. Is that supposed to tell me something? Jason wondered. The girl cocked her head to the side, confused and worried based on the furrow in her brow. Do you understand me? He asked, wondering if she even spoke or understood speech. You wouldn't think she does, Leo teased her. She hardly listens to anything anyone tells her. He chuckled to himself, only for the girl to stand up, reach back, and thwack him upside the head. Ow! Leo yelped, even though it didn't look like that hard a hit, more of a playful love tap. What the hell, Piper? It was only a joke. Quiet down in the back, please. The droopy-eyed guy said from up front, though they just barely heard it over the bus's engine. Leo went back to whatever he was doing, not wanting another slap. Jason returned his attention to the girl. Piper, was it? Jason said hesitantly. He felt bad, as this girl seemed to know him, while he didn't have the faintest idea who she was. He considered lying to her, acting normal, but that wouldn't have been fair to her. Where are we? Where are we going? She didn't even get the chance to answer. Leo did it for her. Oh, we're in the glorious wilderness school where troubled kids get to go when they became too much of a pain for the people that are supposed to help them, he said, waving his arms in the air for emphasis on his words. In other words, he dropped his hands into a shrug. We're at rock bottom. But why? Why are we here? What did we do? Isn't there somewhere else we can go? Leo didn't answer this one, leaving it to Piper with her hand motions. That should be a she. She tapped the front part of her right shoulder, and then the front part of her left. She made the OK symbol, like this. With both hands, interlocked her thumb and index fingers. Finally, she put both palms facing up and made small circular motions in the air. She did these motions with a saddened look, her eyes down, her expression melancholic. I don't What is this? I don't understand. I'm sorry, Jason said, trying his best to sound genuine, which he was, but the sentence did seem kind of dickish. The girl scrunched her eyes a bit, indicating frustration, before reaching down and digging into the backpack between them. It was the first time Jason noticed it, and alongside it was a skateboard. Was he a skater? How did he know what a skateboard was? As Piper searched for whatever it was she was looking for, Jason found himself digging in his own pockets, quickly wrapping his hand around a small object inside. When he removed his hand and looked, he saw that it was a small coin made entirely of gold. On one side was the face of a man who looked really ancient, with the word Julius, that's Ivliv's, etched into the bottom, and on the other side was a picture of a sword and a battle axe crossed together in combat. When Piper finally found what she was looking for, a small notepad and a pencil, Jason started flipping the coin up and down, again out of habit. How did he acquire this habit? Piper started writing. I said we belong here. It was sign language. I taught you how to use it, remember? She wrote. I'm sorry, but no, I don't, Jason replied, waiting for her to write more. Amnesia was all she wrote in response. It was a logical explanation. I guess, but I don't... Jason trailed off. Piper tapped the pencil against her chin for a second. Wait, why won't you say anything to me again? Is it like... I'll tell you why. Leo popped back up again, shoving some earplugs in his ears and tickling Piper in her sides. Piper laughed out loud for a few seconds, but then slapped her hand across her mouth, silencing herself. It was too late, though. The entire bus, including Jason, laughed out loud right after her. Odd. Jason didn't find anything funny. He looked around, seeing that no one had shifted at all to look at them. Piper's face went beet red, her teeth gritted, while Leo fell back into his chair, cackling like a lunatic. Oh, that never gets old. He wiped a tear from his eye. Hey man, cut it out, Jason warned, though he wasn't thinking. You're clearly bothering her, so just stop. Leo wondered. What are you talking about? Just playing around. Piper didn't say anything for or against it, just wrote on her piece of paper. I think Jason is sick. She showed it to Leo. He waited for her to write more. He should already know that this is just how we are. He even already talked to you about it before, remember? Leo shrugged after he read it. Well, he was always stubborn. Maybe he's like a dog and just relapsing in behavior? Piper looked unamused. Leo, I'm serious. I think Jason is really sick. That's written. I don't know. Leo looked Jason up and down. Hey, Grover, what do you think? Leo tapped the boy next to him. He looked slightly older than Piper and Leo, if only by a year, if that. Grover turned to the trio and froze when he saw Jason. It was only for the briefest of moments, but Grover seemed to come to an understanding with the amnesiac. He took his headphones off. What's up, Lee? The older boy wondered. What do you think of Jason here? He says he can't remember anything. Leo used air quotes. Grover considered for a second. Did he hit his head? Grover wondered. You're serious? Jason replied, thinking it would be really lame if that was the case, and that was it. I'm serious, man. Well, not that I can remember. Jason quickly realized how stupid that sentence sounded. Just then, though, the bus stopped. Jason hadn't even realized, but they'd arrived at their destination, the Grand Canyon, and a glass overhang to observe it. The droopy-eyed guy stood first, adjusting his suit and holding up a clipboard. Please stand when I call your name and regroup with your partner to await further instructions, he said. Geez, I always feel like having a nap when he talks, Leo said as the names began to be read off. Quite a few names were called out. Jason Grace. The man said it without hesitation. Jason stood, grabbing the skateboard. Piper offered him the bag, too, which he took. The amnesiac found that he was just barely too tall to stand up straight in the bus. Jason exited, but stuck close to the door to wait for the three people he actually knew the names of. The wait was agonizingly long, as the guy read the names so slowly, and he waited for about 10 years after the kid got off to read the next name. Piper McLean, the guy said a bit later. The girl exited, immediately shivering. Here, Jason said instinctively, reaching for something to give her, even though she already had on a thick white jacket. Still, he persisted. He reached around his neck, realizing that he'd been wearing a scarf. A bright pink scarf, unapologetically. He stared at it blankly for a second, feeling as if it had some importance, before he handed it to her. Piper raised an eyebrow, probably thinking he'd be cold without it, but he was perfectly fine. In fact, while everyone else seemed to feel the biting cold of winter wind, Jason felt nothing, like it was a nice spring day. Anyway, whether she was confused or not, Piper accepted the scarf and put it on, wrapping it around her exposed neck. When she was in a resting position, even her chin and lips were obscured by it. This was the first time Jason took the time to really look at her. Her skin was just a few shades darker than his, perhaps implying mixed heritage in some form, though it wasn't like crazy dark like an African American's either. Her face was free of makeup, though it didn't do anything to stifle her looks. She was pretty without it. Her hair seemed to be both completely unkempt and very well cared for. It was braided in several areas, including some prominent ones which tucked around her head on either side. It was tied into a very messy knot bun, tied where a ponytail would be banded, with a lot of it beginning to fall out. It was cute. Jason found himself blushing when looking at her, and immediately felt wrong to think about anything resembling that when he didn't even know her, so he turned away, embarrassed. Grover Underwood, the guy, who was probably a teacher, said a while later. The kid came out wearing baggy pants and walking with crutches, like he had something wrong with his legs. Jason felt bad for the guy. He figured that if he was sent here to the wilderness school, then his folks must have not wanted to deal with him because of his disability or something like that. Leo Valdez, the guy continued. "Aw, yeah!" Leo jumped up and bounded off the bus at Mach 6, quickly joining the group. It was surprising how fast he moved with those spindly legs. "You ready, Jason? We're gonna ace the assignment, aren't we?" He used air quotes again. "Assignment?" Jason inquired. Piper hooked her arm into his possessively, making him blush. "What? But he was my partner," Leo argued. Grover chuckled. "Yo, I think she changed her mind," the crippled boy said. "Don't worry, man, I'll be your partner." "Thanks, Grove," Leo said, shrugging. Eventually, the rest of the kids and the teacher got off. Odd, Jason thought. I thought he might think something was weird, but maybe I was imagining things? He thought in reference to Grover. What?
You're only halfway.
How long have we been going?
We're at 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh my god, dude. Too long.
What have you done?
The teacher allowed the kids to use the restroom. While Jason didn't have to relieve himself, he wanted to look at himself in the mirror. Maybe there was something on his person that might clue him into his origins. The first thing that struck Jason was how built he was. He was broad-shouldered, which was where most of that image came from. While his arms weren't buff like the Rock's, they were definitely muscled and lean. It also looked like he had been in more than a few fights, with scars lining his arms. Is that why I was sent here? Because I'm too violent? Jason wondered and shivered at the thought of even coming close to a fist fight. His hair was cut short-ish, not like a buzz cut, but close. It was blonde as well. Jason noticed a small scar on his lip. For some reason, it filled him with warmth, as if reminding him of feelings from another time. I wish I could remember, he thought. That's also not proper spacing. Sorry.
You're going to have to go back through it anyway. It's fine.
I know. Another standout about him was his arm. There was a tattoo on it. It was a small etching of an eagle closest to his hand, right at the wrist. Below that was 4 letters, SPQR, followed by a series of 12 parallel lines. Huh? Leo looked over. When did you get the time to get that? I don't... Right, sorry, Mr. Amnesiac, Leo teased. So what does it mean, anyway? Senatus Populus Romanus. I don't know how to speak Latin. Jason said instantly. He reached his hand up to his mouth, confused as to how he knew that. It means... He held his head, feeling something trying to resurface. It means... He found himself lightheaded, leaning on the wall to keep from doubling over. He dropped to one knee. Whoa! Jason, you okay? Leo, for once, looked genuinely concerned, kneeling down with him. He offered Jason his hand, though with his physique, Jason didn't think he could help him back up at all. Yeah, I'm fine, Jason returned, feeling the lightheadedness fade. Oh my god. Ah!
And we're pausing there. You'll have to wait for the rest.
That'd be a dick move. A moment later, they were all standing on the overhang, which was glass at the bottom. Reinforced glass, they were assured. Piper met Jason and smiled. She had something written already. I'll do the worksheet. I know you're not feeling well. Jason smiled back. Thank you, Piper. From then on, Jason just walked around with her. As she filled out the worksheet they'd apparently been given a few days prior. Most everyone completed the worksheet long before the allotted time on the catwalk was over, so they all just hung out with the teacher watching everyone lazily. Odd, Jason thought. Are his clothes caught in the wind or something? He wondered, seeing them flow slightly, even when he wasn't moving and there wasn't any wind to catch it. Jason shook his head, feeling he was growing paranoid. Piper had gone over and started playing pranks on the others, along with Leo. Jason didn't want to be a part of that, so he just leaned on the railing, looking down into the canyon below. He almost expected to feel nauseous, but he didn't. What I wouldn't give to just dive down and soar through there, he found himself thinking as he sighed. It wasn't until a few seconds later did he realize how strange that desire was. He would die, wouldn't he? Hey, Grover approached, breaking up Jason's thoughts. It's Jason, right? Wait, you're asking? The blonde wondered. Does that mean you don't know me? Never seen you before in my life, man, Grover admitted. But hey, doesn't mean we can't meet now. Name's Grover. He offered his hand. Jason, I guess. He took the crippled man's hand. Blah, 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 blah. Grin over there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I guess you must be the saving grace, huh? Grover wondered. Well, don't worry. The extraction team should be here soon to... Whoa! Hold up! Jason interrupted. Saving grace? Is that a code name? And what extraction team? Grover blinked. You weren't faking your amnesia? No, I actually don't remember anything. Grover grimaced. Well, that could complicate things just a bit. Tell you what, you've just got to go along with everything. I can tell you're a half-blood, so it should be safe to bring you to camp. What camp? What do you mean half-blood? Jason continued asking questions. Jason, relax. Everything will... Uh-oh. Grover looked above them, out of nowhere. Massive storm clouds formed above them, only to disperse a moment later. That can't be good. Damn it. Where's the extraction? Grover? Hey, Grover. Jason got his attention again. You want to fill me in? What's going... The skywalk shook violently, causing most everyone to fall. Grover, surprisingly, caught himself. Everyone grab a rail! The older boy yelled. A few seconds later, the glass below them shattered. Should have stopped there.
You could, but I think everyone knows what happens. If you want to be done, you could be done.
Nah.
Do it.
We're already 2/3 of the way done, dude.
Balls to the wall, make them wait.
No. We're already 2/3 of the way done with the chapter.
Okay.
Thankfully, most everyone had grabbed onto a railing in time. Except for Leo, of course. He was too busy trying to pants a guy. Leo fell through the glass when it broke, screaming bloody murder as he did. Leo! Jason called, reaching toward him. Obviously, though, he couldn't reach the impish boy. Just then, however, a sort of wind spirit thing caught Leo and guided him toward an outcropping in the cliff face before flying up to the group, causing an intense wind to pick up, drowning out anything but yells, which there were plenty of. Jason! Grover said, climbing onto the railing and displaying an incredible balance. He'd kicked off his shoes, revealing hooves? With what had happened in the past 30 seconds, Jason wasn't even shocked. Get to Piper! Don't let the Oh, God, fuck, how do you pronounce that? Don't let the Anemoy Thulai get to her. What did you call it? Jason questioned, which I'm wondering too. Though Grover ignored him. He stepped into the air, and a small circle of grass and leaves appeared beneath his hooves. Grover had dropped one of his crutches and looked to be using the other as a weapon. The wind spirit seemed to have a vaguely humanoid shape, though its face was a mystery. It dove for Piper, but Grover intercepted it, bashing it away with his crutch. The wind monster made another mad dash, thinking that the attack had been a fluke, when Grover did a spin kick with his hooves. A watcher? It snarled, just realizing that Grover had goat legs. Aw, yeah, Grover challenged. Come on and feel my goat foo, you big fart beast. What am I watching? Jason thought, dumbfounded at the ridiculousness of it. Then he shook his head, remembering that he wasn't supposed to be watching. He climbed his way over to Piper, who looked too shocked to even breathe. Hey, he eased her into his arms for more support. His voice was level, surprisingly. He'd expected to be as terrified as she was, but it felt as though... as though he'd been in this kind of situation before. It's going to be all right. Grover has this handled. But he didn't. Grover handled himself well, but he was fighting a half-intangible wind spirit. He tumbled with the thing in the air, grappling with his goat legs, but was ultimately thrown off right where Leo was. Grover stood, though he couldn't move back up to where Jason and Piper were. Instead, he focused on Leo. Hey, man, you cool? Leo nodded, too stunned to speak. All right. Okay, we've got to find a way up there, all right? The wind spirit met Jason again. Get off, he ordered Piper, all but shoving her away. He knew this thing was after her, and he couldn't protect her when she was hanging on him. Jason felt a strange energy well up within him, and he vaulted onto the railing. The spirit looked confused that this weirdo would challenge him so foolishly. Do you know what I am, mortal? Shut it, Ventus! Jason found himself yelling, reaching into his pocket and grabbing his coin. The creature charged. Jason swiped the hit away, pushing the thing back without actually touching it. It was like he controlled the air around him to repel the attack. He wasn't thinking about his actions or words. They just flowed naturally from within him. This was what he did. He knew it. The Ventus, or wind spirit, charged the blonde, but Jason flipped up his coin. The motion startled the spirit, with it almost being repelled by the gold trinket. Jason caught it in his palm and then smashed it into his other, sweeping his hands apart. As he did, the coin changed shape into a blade, with Jason gripping its hilt in his right hand. He only just realized what he did and stared at the golden blade, dumbfounded.
Sorry, continue.
The Ventus looked equally as confused. Jason turned back to the creature and then readied himself, holding the blade in both of his hands. The storm spirit charged again, but Jason could see its attacks coming, parrying its blows with strong swings. The blade never made any contact with it, however. The air around it repelled the attacks just like Jason did himself earlier. Soon, though, the monster broke through, taking advantage of Jason's precarious footing and knocking him off balance. Jason fell, just barely catching himself by grabbing onto the railing. He slammed against it hard, but he hardly felt it. The wind spirit was on him quick, with Jason being forced to parry a good few more attacks, with some even making contact, feeling like a sharp sting on his skin. Jason flipped back up, surprised at his own athleticism, and combated the Ventus again, only focusing on keeping it away from Piper, who could only hang on for dear life. Gah! I was never told they would send a trained bodyguard, he complained. Fine, maybe I'll give him a little incentive. The spirit started to make a break for the others that were there. What? Jason couldn't believe what he was seeing. No! The spirit didn't listen, drawing close to its first victim. Get away from them! Jason wasn't thinking, and he must have had the devil's own luck to have this stunt not get anyone seriously injured. He threw his blade up into the air, flipping it. Then he smashed his hands together, feeling a tug in his gut as he did. The clap was a thunderclap, sending a sonic boom arcing out from the impact point in a sphere, the pressure of the air bursting violently. He then caught what was once the sword, now turned back into a coin because of the flip. The Ventus was sent careening down into the canyon, and most everyone had hung on. Jason! He'd heard behind him, the voice unfamiliar. The blonde turned, seeing that his sonic boom had damaged the railing closest to him, the one that Piper was hanging onto. She'd called out to him just as she slipped off and started falling. Catch me! She pleaded. Oh, I'm probably going to die, was Jason's only thought as he leapt down after her. He was significantly farther down. He needed to find some way to pick up speed. The canyon walls raced by as Jason tried to think. The skateboard? Birds? A falcon? Were his desperate thoughts. He thought about how you picked up speed going down a hill on a skateboard. He tucked his body in, lowering his center of gravity. He tucked his arms into his body and backward like a falcon diving through the sky. He actually found himself going faster. He willed the winds to help him, and they obeyed, blasting him further down. His arms were behind him, his feet facing straight, one right behind the other. Leo looked on. It could have been his shock or some kind of hallucination, but it almost looked like Jason was flying, diving down to Piper. I see wings, he muttered in awe. He put a hand to his chest, feeling it heat up in excitement. I want them too. Piper was only a few meters from the river below when Jason swooped under her and caught her. It took him a few seconds to regain his balance, like he just landed from a jump while skating or snowboarding. Piper's eyes were closed. It's probably for the best, Jason thought, taking a glance at his feet. He seemed to form visible air currents, which he was skating on using whatever weird powers he had control over for some reason.
It's pretty cool.
I know.
He basically skates on air.
Yeah.
That's really
That's the
cool.
idea.
That's really cool.
And he can decide where the hills are going to be and where the dives are.
That's fucking badass. So it's almost like Frozone in The Incredibles, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Frozen.
And he goes along.
Where's my super suit? Where is my super suit?
Voice crack.
Why? Why do you need to know? I need it. Oh no! Oh, we haven't played at this dinner for 4 months. You are not gonna skip out on me. The public is in danger.
The public's always in danger.
My evening's in danger. You tell me what my suit is, woman. We are talking about the greater good. The greater good. I am your wife. I am the greatest good you are ever gonna get. That's my favorite quote ever. Alright, continuing with Captain. Piper. Jason said her name softly. It's alright. We're safe, I think. She slowly opened her eyes, seeing that Jason had caught her and was carrying her bridal style. She didn't even care either, considering that it was either this or being a red stain on the canyon floor. She only shifted to hang onto his neck as he air surfed upwards, towards where Grover and Leo were situated. They never made it, however, as the extraction team came just then. Scene transition. The XXX's. Winona's flying chariot broke through the cloud barrier to see the extraction point in shambles. Winona could see at least one of the targets along with Grover, perched on an outcropping. The other she couldn't see, but she could see the Animoy Thorlai that was attacking them. The girl took a deep breath and summoned her bow, pulling a sunlight arrow from a quiver that didn't exist, and knocking it. Once it was pulled back, Winona twitched and flexed her fingers, and suddenly there were a dozen arrows notched between them. Another breath, and then Winona fired them off.
Really fucking badass.
I know, dude.
It's almost like they occupied the same space, and then once released, it's just like... Yeah, it's awesome.
Scene transition. XXX's. Golden streaks of light rained down from the sky all of a sudden. Unfortunately for Jason, the Ventus was between where they were fired and him, meaning that the streaks that missed the Ventus, which was all but one, Jason had to avoid frantically, swerving and ducking between the attacks. Through it all, Piper didn't make a sound, just clutched onto Jason's neck and sealed her eyes shut in terror. He couldn't blame her. And now there are more of them? The Ventus roared. Fine! We'll retreat for now. We will have our revenge soon enough. And then it darted away, disappearing on the horizon. End.
And we're at almost 3 hours. Holy shit.
So that's a taste of what's to come.
It's pretty cool.
Goodbye! Oh, no.
Congratulations. I would say just,
And
keep your eyes out for when this one comes up, I guess, and be prepared for whatever else he ends up writing. You have any final comments or words?
You guys are the fucking best. You know that? Thank you so much for sticking through this. And I'll see you in United We Stand. I'm really tired now. All right. Bye-bye.
See ya. You missed. It's beautiful.
I know, I just stopped the audio.